Have you ever seen those lists on the internet that's like top 5 sandwich toppings, top 5 movies of the year, top 5 celebrities who have a very punchable face? You know what I'm talking about. The point is, all these lists drive us crazy because we have no idea who made them and how they even narrowed down their top 5 list. That's where my podcast comes in. My name is Tung La, and I am the host of Ranked, top 5 lists of stuff that don't matter. In every episode, with the help of a motley crew of self-proclaimed experts, we debate, battle, and work together, showing you the entire process of how we got there, to create a top 5 list of any and every topic we can think of, like top 5 brunch menu items, top 5 fictional dogs, top 5 90s songs, top 5 Steves? The list goes on, and we will not rest till we rank basically everything. So join us every second Thursday in the Pod Cavern for Ranked, top 5 lists of stuff that don't matter.
Top 5, top 5, top 5.
Hi everyone, I'm Tung.
I'm Brad.
I'm Laura.
And I'm Sam.
And we are the Pixar Pals, or you might know us as
Disney Dummies.
Dummies. Pixar Pals everywhere. Hello. Welcome to Disney Dummies Cross Pixar Pals, the show where we watch all of the Pixar animated theatrical releases starting from Toy Story till now. This is a really exciting episode because just with the timing of it all worked out that this episode comes directly after, like, we watched Elemental months ago and we recorded that episode months ago. And then this new movie, I'm teasing it out, it just so happens that we watched it just a few days ago and we get to release the episode the following week. So before we get into what that episode is or what the movie is, I just want to make sure, is everyone doing okay? I just want to check in with our feelings right now. How you doing, Sam, Brad, Laura? Feeling okay?
I feel good.
Yeah?
I'm a little anxious.
Yeah. Sam, yourself?
I'm a little ennuied.
And I'm embarrassed for myself.
Yeah.
Always. Today we are diving into the sequel of feelings. It's Inside Out 2, everyone.
Da, 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 da.
Don't start.
You're going to just play the actual bit, right?
I'm about to cry if you start singing that, Laura, even in your off-key voice.
Because I'm beautiful. Because my voice is beautiful.
And that too. Everyone, we're talking about Inside Out 2. This is exciting times. I mean, this is 9 years after the original Inside Out. As the audience might know, that's my favorite Pixar movie. Flips back and forth between that and Toy Story 3. But let's dive right into nostalgia over here. Not that we have much. Like, literally, we all just seen this film. We saw it, 3 days ago?
Something like that.
And Sam and Brad, you saw it yesterday?
Yesterday, 12 hours ago.
Okay, very fresh in your minds. Let's talk about nostalgia, though. Do you have any? We'll start with Laura.
When was this movie announced? A couple years ago?
Yeah, just a few years ago.
Yeah, I remember that happening.
Is that it?
And that's mostly it.
Okay, cool,
it was announced, and I remember being like, another sequel?
Actually, you know what? This is what I want from the nostalgia, because obviously we haven't seen it before. What was your feeling leading up to this movie, I guess? Like, how are you feeling about a sequel to Inside Out and, the state of Pixar in your mind?
Are we allowed to say feelings that aren't in the movie?
Sure.
Yeah, I guess I was looking forward to it.
That's okay.
I was looking forward to feeling.
The looking forward to emotion.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Sam, Brad, yourself, anything for nostalgia?
Yeah. I remember 3 months ago, I went back into our chat, Laura, just to see it because they dropped the first official trailer, which Tung was like, I'm not going to watch. And I did watch it. And I sent Laura a picture of a dog side-eyeing with a pride flag. and then Laura responded with a pride flag. And then I wrote, if we're being queer baited again, I swear to God. And Laura wrote, I swear to Charles Leclerc.
Nice. Charles Leclerc.
Yeah, that's my nostalgia. It's just talking to Laura because Tung wouldn't watch the trailer. And I felt pretty indifferent, I guess. I was like, yep, that's
Well, as
cool
we
that
as
I'm
we
going to see.
learn, as we maybe will learn, but in a podcast that we've recorded already that hasn't been released yet, Sam is famously an Inside Out hater. So
I'm not. Okay, part of my nostalgia is I did love the first Inside Out. When it came out, I like bawled my eyes out in theaters. I bought the DVD. I've watched it a million times. Like, I am not an Inside Out hater, but I'm a sequel hater. So
Yeah.
noted
Here we
sequel
are.
hater.
How about yourself, Brad?
Yeah, I do remember that very first trailer, like the teaser, which I did watch, where it's just like you just see anxiety and that's it. I thought it was a cool design. But yeah, it seemed like a logical sequel to me. Like it felt like they kind of even teased it a little bit at the end
Yeah,
of
they
the
did.
first one with the whole puberty button thing, kind of like with the first Incredibles where it ends with the Underminer. Obviously this was more intense, but that was kind of like we've got a world that we can build upon, and that kind of like felt like a similar thing. So I wasn't super surprised that they had a sequel coming out.
Yeah, I'd say puberty's not unlike the Underminer.
That would have been great if John Ratzenberger voiced puberty. He is in this movie.
Yeah.
I just forget who it
Yeah,
is.
Yes.
he makes a comeback.
I also will say I completely forgot that this movie was even coming out because I saw that teaser whenever that came out, and then I just like pushed it out of my mind and was like, whatever. And then it like was suddenly here, and I was like, oh yeah, that movie.
Yeah, for my nostalgia here, conflicting emotions. I actually do remember watching the teaser with anxiety.
Yeah.
I remember watching
Yes.
that, and then I didn't watch any trailers after that. I really, really loved Inside Out. I gush about it on the top 5 Disney or Pixar movies episode that should be out soon. At least on the ranked feed, it might be already out on ranked top 5 list of stuff that don't matter. And yeah, I was hesitant, but also excited because Inside Out is my favorite, but also I'm just like, sequel fatigue is a real thing. And Sam recently posted a thing in our dummies chat about Pete Docter saying that, yeah, we should have less personal stories to the director and more stories that kind of are universal to everyone. And I'm like, well, that's whatever. Like that's a whole can of worms that I don't want to get into. I don't necessarily agree with that sentiment, but I do think Inside Out as a sequel makes a lot of sense. And it's been 9 years. I think it's plenty of time between the first one and the second one. It's not like Toy Story 3 to 4 kind of situation. Or Toy Story 4 to Lightyear situation. It's like, no, it seemed like they took their time between letting us sit in our feelings before getting into the next stage of maturity, which I think is smart for the audience who grew up with Inside Out. You know, when those kids were kids, now they get to see a new version of Riley with like, you know, multiple emotions like anxiety. And I think that's really smart. So yeah, I was hesitant about it, but also excited because, yeah, I wanted to revisit this world. And I think there was and is a lot of creativity that can be mined out of this franchise, if you will. So with that said, we are going to dive into the summary portion of it. And kind of like we did this with Wish, and we did this with Strange World. I think Sam did Strange World, I did Wish, and Brad's about to do the summary for Inside Out 2. So if you haven't seen Inside Out 2 yet, just know we will be summarizing it. So if you wanted to watch it, maybe watch it first and then, you know, listen to this episode. But also by saying that it is that we've, you know, Brad only watched it once yesterday in theaters. It's really hard to take notes in the theaters. Like Sam and I can probably attest to that. And so our summary...
I didn't even try. You guys are crazy.
Yeah, I remember like for the Wish episode, like using multiple pages, writing in the dark, and then looking at my notes later, and then having like words on top of other words and being like, what did I write? But it somehow worked out. Yeah, so that's all to say is that our summary might not be as in-depth, so we're going to try to support Brad where we can. But with all that said, I think, Brad, you should take us inside out of the summary.
Yeah, we'll see how my notes go. I will say mad respect to like, I guess that's how people do it on like people that review movies professionally. Like they sit in the dark
sometimes
in
they get
theater.
screeners though.
I was going to say they get private screen.
Okay, because yeah, it was not easy to write in the dark.
Isn't it wild that we've been doing this for many, many years and we have not once been given a screener?
Yeah.
A copy? I mean, we've
But,
never asked, but they should just know that this podcast.
Yeah, don't say no about us.
Yeah.
They should.
Yeah.
So yeah, well, hopefully you all can help me out as we go. We'll see how coherent my notes are. But surprise, surprise, we start with some very sad sounding music, at least to me, over the Disney logo. Or not sad, maybe like melancholy. It wasn't necessarily like upbeat, but then and that Disney logo is like super baller now. But,
Yeah.
Oh,
It's the
yeah.
third time
Holy
we've
shit.
seen it, maybe?
Yeah. And did you two see it in 3D or 2D?
2D.
Oh, okay, we might talk about that later, but we saw it in 3D, so the Disney logo is like intense.
Wow.
But it goes from this kind of like soft melancholy music, and then it picks up into more upbeat and playful as the Pixar logo comes in, and it's getting like more and more energetic. And then boom, we're right in like a hockey rink, and Riley's like skating around during a hockey game. This whole montage was actually really cool because it's a montage of Joy like hockey announcing the game, but through that she's also reintroducing all the emotions from the previous movie. But it's just like, I don't know, it's like a 2-minute sequence, and you immediately know all the emotions again. They're all there. You get to know Riley again. I thought it was a really concise summary to bring everybody up to speed if you hadn't seen
Totally.
the last movie. So yeah, good intro for them. Joy tells us that Riley's still awesome. Surprise, surprise. Joy still really likes Riley. She's 13 now, as Tung said. She has braces. It's
And a
mentioned that
zit.
And it's it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. It's mentioned that Boy Band Island is gone now. I'm not sure if something took that place yet, but Boy Band Island's gone.
Yeah, because in the original movie, they had an island for like basically all of her interests.
I think she had like 5 islands.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like Family Island, Goofball Island, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Not to
exactly.
be confused with her core beliefs.
That's
Well,
a different thing.
yeah.
That's a different thing.
Yes.
Different thing.
So I was just getting to that so memories are now creating these core beliefs, as Sam said, which we didn't have in the first movie, at least not in this way. Like the core, what was it called in the first movie? Was it core
Memories?
beliefs in the first?
I think
Sorry?
it was, I don't think they had beliefs.
No.
I don't think they just had memories. And it's like
And
the
they-
collection of memories has created beliefs.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, we've got these core beliefs now, which are kind of like they kind of look like atoms, like an atom. If you imagine like a logo of an atom with the rings around it, it
Yeah,
kind of
like,
looks like that.
like strings of an instrument feeding up into an atom. Kind of, that's
Yeah.
part of the
Yeah,
center where they work.
This is like a whole new thing for the film, and basically these core beliefs are like who you see yourself as internally. Yeah. So we're back to the game. That was like an introduction to that whole concept. Back to the game. It's been going on this whole time. Riley's like a really good hockey player. I know she was into hockey in the last movie, but she's like super awesome here. And they win the game. I think she gets the winning shot or the winning pass or something. So
Yeah, because Grace hadn't scored a goal.
She does
yet.
like an
So she passes to her
insane
best friend, Grace.
move for like
Yeah.
a 13-year-old. I forget what they name it, something like, I don't know, tip the iceberg. Or I forget what it is.
It was yeah, it was like a modern day flying V. I think it's like a through the loop or something. Like she passes the puck backwards through the opponent's legs, and Grace is there to score.
Yeah.
oh shit.
It's a great
Yeah.
move.
It's pretty intense.
It was pretty good. So Riley's really awesome. There's a high school coach that was there that she was like, so Riley and her 2 friends, she's like, you all played awesome. I want you to come to like hockey camp over, I guess,
It's like a
I don't know
weekend.
what,
Like
the
or
week. Yeah, it was a 3-day
3-day.
3-day thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if it was the weekend or like after in the summer, or I don't know when, but basically they get invited to hockey camp with high schoolers. So this is a big deal. So Riley, we cut to later. Riley's really worried about screwing up at camp, but Joy wants to send those kinds of memories that like weigh on Riley, like the sad, or not necessarily the sad memories, but the ones that have her doubting herself. She wants to send those to the back of the mind and just be like, we're gonna ignore those. We're only gonna focus on like our core memories. So the OG, the crew, as I probably call it throughout the book, the main 4 from the last movie, they're just like tossing memories that they're like, this is like not a great memory. Let's toss it. That's
anything negative.
all the good stuff. Yeah, anything negative. Because they really want to keep Riley as happy as possible. At the end of all that, Joy wants to take this new core memory to the belief system, and Sadness wants to go because I guess only Joy has been going so far. but Sadness wants to see it, and I don't know, she's being all like sad about it. And Joy and Sadness, and this is where you kind of find out that, or can tell that Joy and Sadness from the last movie are now like cool. They get along. They acknowledge that each has a very important role to play, even though they're kind of opposites in a way. Like they each need each other. So there's no more tension really between them. They work really well together. So they arrive at this new belief system, which I basically wrote like, this is pretty fucking visually cool. I was like blown away, especially in the actual like 3D viewing. Yeah, it's kind of like in a way an island, and then it's like an ocean around it, just by like dark water, so you can't see. And then these core beliefs that they put into the water, like you shoot like strings, like Laura was saying, like a violin string up into the like way high up into the
Like a
sky.
harp, like or like that type
Yeah.
of string, yeah.
So you get this really, it's just a very cool visual.
Then like
And
if you like pluck it, it will like say what that belief is.
Yeah.
yeah, what the belief is. Yeah. And there's not too many beliefs there yet.
No.
There's like a good amount, but
Who doesn't?
yeah, not like a ton just yet. So Joy wants to create a new belief for Riley, and this is how she makes it. So Joy is the one deciding what is gonna make Riley who she is, not just like emotionally, but like as a person growing up at this point anyway. So that's cool. That looks friggin' sweet. We cut to all the emotions are sleeping. I guess emotions sleep when you're sleeping as well. But they're awoken by some beeping that's going along. And they're all like, what's going on here? There's not usually beeping in Riley's head. So they all kind of like go to the command center where the beep is coming from, and they see this big button that says puberty on it. And they're all like, oh shit. And they start like scrambling. Stuff starts getting real. A wrecking ball just like comes through the wall, and all they what were these little blue guys that were everywhere?
Mind workers?
Mind workers, I
Yeah, they were in the
guess.
first movie too. They're just like
Yeah.
I think they're just called mind workers or whatever. And this whole section is in the teaser, I remember. The
Yes.
teaser trailer.
Yeah, this is kind of from here to like, yeah, when what we'll get to. This is basically the teaser. So yeah, it's demo day. These mind workers are like walking around, and they're like, we gotta do this. Let's rip that down, put in a new console. And Joy's like, what's going on? Why are you putting in a new console? So the headquarters is just getting like ripped apart, and Riley is about to wake up. So all the emotions are just going like crazy because they're like, you're destroying everything. Riley's about to wake up. The brain workers are like, oh, it's break time. And so the Joy and everybody's just like freaking out. Riley does wake up and just immediately starts like a flood of emotions coming over her. She's like overreacting just to everything like in her mind, which I obviously relates to like the literal emotions in her head, freaking out, not knowing what's going on. And then Riley is projecting that, and her mom comes in and like immediately knows what's going on and tries to like comfort her, and Riley's just like crazy emotions. So yeah, awkward, intense, all those fun puberty emotions. Yeah, and then I don't know if anything really happened there before we get to the car. I think the mom's just like, I think we go into the mom's head, and they're like, oh boy, here we go. It's starting.
Yeah. It's like a sensitive top. Like the mom knows exactly what's going on with her daughter and is trying to tread carefully, but with a lot of kids going through puberty, it's, uphill battle.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's the day that they're going to the camp now. That's when Riley is woken up. So Riley and her other two friends are in the car going to the camp, and they're just kind of like sharing, I feel like, their hopes for the camp, and like they're like, oh, maybe this will happen and that'll happen, blah blah blah. And disgust in Riley's mind sees her one friend's like micro emotion movement. There's just like a flicker in the eyebrow. And so disgust is like, oh, hold up, like pause and rewinds that. And then we kind of get a back and forth between the friend's head and Riley's head, where both the disgusts are like flicking back and forth between these like tiny micro movements. And they're like, something's up. She's holding something back. And then Riley finds out that both of her two friends are not coming. I guess they're going to high school the next year.
Yeah.
So her two friends are not going to the same high school that Riley's going to be going to. They're going to a different one, which Riley's obviously very upset about this, but kind of like holds it all in and is just kind of,
Trying to play it cool.
yeah, playing cool. and just trying to like t absorb the information in shock, I guess, in a way.
Yeah.
So she gets out of the car, her friends kind of run off a bit, and I thought this was nice to show that Joy has grown because Joy is like, okay, now let Riley cry, and then Riley starts crying, and Joy's like, this is good for her, let her cry, that kind of thing. And then while she's kind of like coming out of her crying state, this girl, Val, who's a high schooler or the captain of the hockey team, I think, Riley notices Val there and bumps into her, but Riley is like not acting cool. Riley's being like really weird and like babbling. The animation here is really funny too on Riley, just like the way she's acting and her facial expressions and stuff.
There's a lot of cringe happening
Yeah.
for sure,
Yeah.
but like it makes sense for her age.
Oh yeah, for sure. And Val's like pretty cool. She's got like her hair is all nice. She's got this like red thing in her hair. She seems like a pretty cool girl. So
Yeah,
Val's
she's
just like,
she's really cool. I would say Val fucks.
I could see it.
A Wii
I
U.
could, first Wii U? Laura, go ahead.
There
you
go. Val fucks.
Nice. So this is now where we're inside the head and they're like, oh, what's going on? Blah, blah, blah. And the camera kind of like pans over because I think Joy's like, oh, what's going on? Like, who's touching the console? Something like that. And then this is where we get the reveal of Anxiety, who's like,
Da, da, da.
yeah, this I like the design of Anxiety with like
too.
the very wide mouth,
The hair.
big, like poofy hair. The hair in 3D did look really good, actually, with the depth and the bounce, especially.
And kind of like the eyes where it's like always kind of trying to think
Very
about
wide
what's
open.
next. Like that type
Yeah.
of thing. Like, I got to figure out what I'm going to do next. And that's the type of like, energy Anxiety has.
Yeah, so Anxiety is pretty fun, pretty cool. Seems very like not necessarily upbeat, but very like confident and just like, oh, I'm like
Has a
like,
plan.
We're here to help. Yeah, we're like this is what we got to do for like to get Riley to the future because Joy and them are often like in the moment and they're like this is who we want Riley to be in the moment, whereas Anxiety is like, yeah, but what about like 20 years from now? Like we need to plan now for that kind of thing. And this is where we then meet other new emotions. So we've got envy. We've got, which is funny because I keep calling disgust envy. I think I even did that in my last Inside Out one. And I was like, oh, yeah, right now there's an envy. So we've got envy, who's just like a tiny little character. She's very cute.
She
And
wishes
then
she
we've
was
got-
tall like everyone else.
Yeah.
Played by Ao.
Ayo.
Ayo.
Yeah, pretty cool.
That is cool. She's in everything now.
Yeah.
She doesn't sound so like notice. I knew she was in this, but I forgot like the whole time watching.
Yeah.
Like it didn't like sound like her. But also I don't love Envy's design. I feel like all their designs kind of make sense to their emotions, but like how do you even not saying that I could design one better, but like Anxiety is funny because it like looks like Anxiety. Joy's bright like Joy. Like they all kind of look like their emotion, but Envy is just like this blue circle with giant eyes. I'm like,
and super short.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
he
don't
kind
know.
of just feels like they needed a fourth character.
Yeah, they're like, we'll just design some random character. Like, it doesn't feel like Envy, but again, like, I'm like, I don't know how you would design Envy.
I guess like
so like,
she's short because I'm totally making this up. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
you design her short because she's envious of other people's stature and other emotions like place in the mind.
I think it's just a weird one to include. I just wouldn't have. I don't know.
like the emotion itself or the
Yeah,
I
like
have not particulars, but I read some stuff on it, so it makes sense the way they built the movie. But yeah,
I guess.
All right. I look forward to hearing those. All right, where did I leave off here? Oh yeah, then we got embarrassment.
Embarrassment.
come on, am I wrong?
Do you guys think
No.
that?
No, embarrassment vibes.
Maybe a little bit later, it's more clear.
Yeah.
At this very moment.
Not right now.
She's
Right
just got
now
a really
it's-
cool sweater.
Right now, everybody who's watching is in defensive mode, which is like,
Yeah.
who are these new emotions? They're not my crew. They're not my Inside Out team.
Do you guys think embarrassment might be distantly related to Bing Bong?
Yeah, I thought the same thing. Hot take, hot
Maybe.
take.
Yeah, hot take.
So yeah, embarrassment's pretty cool. Another pretty nice design. Most of the designs are pretty nice, but yeah, a much bigger guy. He's got a sweater that he often pulls the like the ropes on to close the sweater, and his big nose sticks out because he gets embarrassed and he turtles. We've got ennui, which I feel like that's a new word that so many kids are now gonna know that Like I rarely hear anybody
I
use ennui.
Didn't even know that word until
Yeah.
this movie.
It's like boredom, but fancier.
Yeah. Well, I looked it
It's
up
more-
later. I'm like, oh, this is well, obviously it's an actual word, but I
Yeah.
never heard anyone say it. So
It's kind of like being aloof, like really
Yeah.
cool,
Yeah.
but like I don't care about being cool. That's how I kind of see ennui anyway. And ennui is really I do like his design because it's just very like droopy.
oh, is it a he? I thought Ennui was
or-
she.
I thought
guess
it was a she too.
Yeah.
Okay, she. All right. Or they.
I mean,
guess.
Yeah, I don't know if they say.
Doesn't
They're-
really.
they're
There's
emotions.
emotions. Yeah, they don't need to.
It doesn't. Yeah, that's the four news. So we got anxiety, envy, embarrassment, and ennui. And joy and the new emotions are kind of arguing because joy's in charge, but anxiety wants to like help more than joy really wants, and kind of stepping on joy's toes, and anxieties showing off all the different futures that Riley might have, where it's like, well, if like we don't do this, this might not happen, and here's all like the paths that might, so we have to make sure Riley goes in these directions to try to like make sure this future comes. And in the meantime, Riley is meeting the new team in the locker room. So Val's taken her to the locker room. She's meeting all of them, call her Minnesota, even though she's not from Minnesota, but
They
she's
call her
like,
Michigan, yeah, even though she's
Michigan,
from
sorry,
Minnesota,
Michigan. Yeah, even though she's not from there, and then that's now her nickname, I guess. And then Riley's old friends, or not the old ones, but her current two friends that she came with, come in and they start like goofing off. Just they're kind of like kids. They're like, "Oh, isn't this awesome?" And they're just kind of messing around, taking selfies.
Oh yeah, when
stuff like that.
Joy hits the console, be like, I know what Riley needs, and then she's like goofing off, and I'm like, oh no, 'cause
Yeah,
like
yeah.
all the high schoolers are
This
like,
is exactly what anxiety was afraid of.
yeah, it's,
Yes,
it's an
yeah,
embarrassing moment, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Joy's like, oh, Riley needs to like goof off and have some fun. That'll snap her out of this funk. But the head coach comes in and it's like, all right, everybody settle down. And all the high schoolers like immediately settle down. But the three of them keep goofing off and they get called out by the head coach. And then the coach is like, all right, like all cell phones need to be taken away, put them all in here, which I don't feel like ever came back. The fact that like the
No.
cell phones got taken away.
I was waiting for
It's
it to be a
just like-
plot point.
Yeah, I thought maybe it was going to come up where it's like, if only I had my cell phone. But it was just maybe so she can't talk with her parents or something through the movie.
I think it's more so because it gets other people annoyed at her.
Yes. Okay. So even though the cell phone is taken away or they haven't taken away yet, but they keep goofing off after they've been told not to. And this gets the coach to be like, all right, thanks to Riley. You're all skating lines and doing drills for like the next while. So the whole team is like, thanks a lot, Minnesota or Michigan.
You know, that's
Whatever.
funny to me because it's just like they're here for a hockey training skills camp.
Yeah.
So it's like they were going to do that anyways.
Yeah, I also thought that. I was like, what?
Here we go. More lines. Okay, sure. We're here for a reason. So
It's true. So yeah, they're doing all their drills and then they're kind of taking a break and Riley overhears some of the high school girls with Val talking about Riley and how immature she is. And anxiety is like, I can do this, and jumps in and manages to get Riley back on track because she's like starting to go down spiral in a way. So anxiety brings her back, and anxiety breaks Riley's core belief, the one that has been in the main headquarters area there, like sitting there. He like rips that out, and she's like,
do we know what the core
Like-
belief is? Have you said it?
I don't think I wrote down that.
Is it being a good
Oh, I'm a good
person?
I'm a
person.
good
I'm a good
person?
person. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the original one that was formed at the very beginning of the movie. Whereas anxiety's like, we need to progress and do something different. So anxiety rips that out and puts a new belief into the system so that she'll leave her current friends and go hang out with the high school kids. Because anxiety's like, well, these friends aren't going to be around next year anyway. We need to make new friends now. So when we come here, we have friends, we have people to hang out with. Like those friends, we can consider them gone already. So pretty brutal and cutthroat by anxiety.
I love the way the anxiety beliefs kind of formulate, like animate. It's just more like a little bit more sinister in a way. It kind of like lightning bolts up before it turns into
Yeah.
its like violin string. It's cool.
Yeah, they're kind of like jaggedy. Like
Yeah.
the previous one's like a smooth, glowing line, whereas these are like sharp and like lightning bolts.
Angular.
Yeah. So with this, anxiety's like, okay, like if we're gonna do this, we need to move away from the original four emotions. And one of the original fours says something about bottles. Can't remember exactly what, but anxiety is like, oh, that's a great idea. We'll just bottle up these emotions.
Yeah.
Uh,
They
they-
always do that in Inside Out, though. Like in
I
the
know.
original one, like what was it? The thought train or whatever? The
Yeah, the
Train of
train of
thought.
thought. It's like, oh, look at this.
they've got a lot of good puns.
Yeah.
So the original emotions get thrown in this big jar and get bottled up, and anxiety plants a new core belief, which is if I'm a firehawk, I won't be alone. Because anxiety seems to be afraid of being alone. So Riley's losing her friends. She's going to be alone. Got to make new friends. Got to become a firehawk. That's the main core belief versus just being a good person. So the OG emotions, they're all suppressed now. They're sent away and they're locked away to be, yeah, suppressed. And this is where we get some more new characters. We get 2D character shows up.
Bloofy?
Bloofy? Yeah. Which is like, I mean, obviously it's a 3D Pixar movie, but this character is like almost like a hand-drawn 2D flat character.
Is hand drawn, actually.
Oh, it is hand-drawn?
That's cool.
I'll get there.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And it's kind of like in a way like a Dora the Explorer kind of character where it's like, what are you like talking to the audience, breaking the
Blue's
fourth
Clues,
wall?
Dora
Yeah,
the
Blue's
Explorer.
I got a good chuckle out of like when they
You know what? Wee-oo.
the Bloofy?
I love
Character
Bloofy.
associated with Bloofy, I'm gonna say Fox.
I was gonna say
Yeah, I was gonna say that
Oh,
too.
no, you're right. You're
Yeah.
right. That's what I
Pouchy,
meant.
but anyways, I was just gonna say what I really like the Bloofy scene is that like, yeah, he keeps going like, what do you want to use? This tomato, this whatever, or this dynamite, or whatever it ends up being. And then you see that same thing, but from behind the character, and Bloofy's
Yeah.
talking to a wall, and it's,
Oh, yeah,
I think
yeah,
it's just
yeah.
really funny.
Yeah.
This character's
They-
psycho.
Yeah, they did a good job with that. That was really funny. So yeah, you got Bloofy, and then you've got two other, at least that we meet. So this whole area that they were in with suppressed emotions, I noticed after this, but it's like a ton of vaults. It's just like a long hallway with a bunch of vaults, and this is like one of the vaults that they're in. So in there is Bloofy. We've also got a deep dark secret, who kind of looked like it reminded me of those characters in Soul in the land
yeah.
of lost souls.
Yeah.
A little bit, kind of looked a little bit like
But
that, very
bigger.
like black and
Yeah.
a bit bigger
Well, yeah.
and punched, and then we've got I didn't catch the name, but it looked like a PS1
Yeah.
Lance
character.
slash Blade.
Yeah, from like a fighting game, where his main special move is to do a cool sword move, but then drop the sword and like
then
slowly roll into the enemy.
Wee him as well. So him and Pouchy out of those, that group
Yeah.
of people, Pouchy especially just made me
Yes,
laugh
and
a
then
lot.
Pouchy shows up. Yeah.
I think Lance is supposed to be like Cloud from Final Fantasy.
Oh, yeah, a little bit. But it is
And he's
funny.
very
That
dramatic.
sword, not
and-
as good with a sword, maybe.
It's so funny how he gets into his sword pose
And he's
then
all
just,
pixelated.
just
Yeah.
rolls. It's great.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, so then with Pouchy, which Bluey, because they're like, we need to get out of here. And Bluey's like, oh, do you know somebody who could help or something like that? And then Pouchy shows up, which is another 2D drawn character, but it's like a magic bag that you can get anything out of. And this is where, as Tong was saying, we get like a sequence where Pouchy's like, what do you think could help? An apple, a flower, dynamite? Oh, I skipped over a bunch. So they take the dynamite. Who takes the dynamite? Is it
Anger.
Lance?
It's like the moment Pouchy
But
takes
they're
it out,
in
he's
the
like, that's
bottle.
enough, and just grabs it and
Yeah, I think that's
explodes
what it is.
Yeah, because they got broken out of the bottle at this point by the
Yeah.
PS1 character, right?
Yeah.
Or Lance.
Yeah.
Lance, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, they're out of the bottle at this point, and then this is where Pouchy shows up, and then Anger takes the dynamite and uses it to blow open the vault. But these guards are coming to catch them and put them back in. And this is where Lance is, I guess, him in disgust over like a couple minutes developed some kind of like
She's into him.
relationship.
She's into him. Yeah.
I mean, they're both into each other, it seems. And so Lance is like, don't worry, like, I will save you and sacrifice myself. And he does his special sword move and rolls, but he rolls so slowly that the guards just step out of the way, which did crack me up pretty good. Yeah. But as he rolls into this like mop bucket. The mop falls over, hits a guard. That guard stumbles backwards into another guard, and basically like takes them out
This
through
was
his sheer will of clumsiness.
yeah, because he takes them all out, and then they all end up in the vault. I think Sam, you might have sent a clip about this scene. I'm not sure. I saw something about like heightening comedy in this movie through the animation and stuff. So I think it might have been this scene where it's like, how do we make this more ridiculous? You know, you got this character who all he can do is roll, and he barely grazes them. He might have hit a mop bucket or something. And then they were talking about like, oh, this is funny, but how can we make it just slightly more funnier with how the rest of like the mind workers like clumsily fall into the vaults?
Oh, I do remember this
Remember?
clip, and it was the animation. Yes,
Right, yeah.
specifically the animation.
So
yeah.
I thought that was, I was thinking about that when I was watching. I was
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, it is funnier. It's like 10% funnier if they move like this into the vaults. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, pretty that got a good chuckle out of me. And he just kind of like keeps rolling off into the
Yeah,
distance.
it doesn't
and-
stop.
It doesn't stop. So yeah, they've basically broken out of this suppressed vault, and Joy knows they need to go to the back of the mind to save Riley, because that's where that original core belief of I'm a good person, anxiety sent it to the back of the mind. So that's where Joy wants to go to get it back. We get a fun little montage of Joy explaining her plan, but it's all like ripped up paper and it's cut out, and it's a very cool little sequence of, yeah, her plan.
That little
Immediately.
sequence
Oh,
felt to me like they were just trying to do the thing they did in the first one, though. I was like, yeah, I see what you're doing here. Like when they went into the thing and they all became 2D and they became constructs, and then they were like concept art, and then they like break down. Like it felt like they just needed to do that again, and that's where they did it to me.
Yeah.
As you were.
I think I think I know what you're saying, but it's not as crazy as that. Like
It's not as crazy, but
Yeah.
it just feels like that's why it's there.
And we
I
do
don't know.
get that sequence later as well. I think it's this sequence because they're like dragging her.
Oh,
and
it
stuff.
might. Yeah.
Yeah, you almost like see the animation keys, like the dot on the
Vaguely
computer that
remember.
you would know.
Yeah.
Joy's got this plan, but then they're like, yeah, this is going to work great. I know exactly where to go. And they immediately run into a dead end. What's this area called from the first movie? It's just like all the memories and thoughts, like long-term storage or something, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's where all
Long-term
the
memory.
balls are and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Because they're always
yeah.
like, send it to long term.
Yeah. They're just like super high bookshelves with these memories on them. And it's like a giant, giant maze. So they run into a dead end there because anxiety is like moving things around already and reshaping all this stuff. We get back to the main or the new characters, and they force Riley to get up really early and start practice like super early. And they're pushing Riley really hard because anxiety's just like, we have to prove ourselves, we have to get better, blah, 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 all that stuff. So it's just like very intense. Val shows up and her and Riley start talking. And yeah, they're getting along pretty well. It was like a little bit rocky yesterday, but Val's like, oh, you're here training too, like blah, blah, blah. And they kind of start getting along. So Val invites Riley to hang out after and join her team. She's like, when we break up into squads, you should join our team. And then later when they break up into teams, Riley's like weird with her friends. I'm not sure if that's now actually, but Riley is weird with her friends here because she's like, I want to go hang out with these new friends. So back with Joy, that little group decide to send Sadness back to the headquarters because they need to be recalled from the back of the brain to the front. So they're like, we need somebody to sneak in, and then in the moment,
Press
call
the
us back.
button, use the
Get us
like
back.
vacuum tube back to headquarters.
Yeah. And then, so this is where I wrote this down because I was like, hey, but I'm blanking on the guy's name that voices the Ham from Toy Story. What's
John
his name again?
Ratzenberger.
John Ratzenberger.
Yeah. There's a walkie-talkie in the foreground that's like, hey, what's going on down there or something? And I was like, hey, it's Ham.
Oh,
So
that's
I
what
called
it is.
that voice.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
nice.
So yeah, he was on the radio. To get to the back of the mind, or at least to make part of their way there, they're gonna ride down this river. I can't remember exactly what they called it, but they're gonna ride some broccoli, which obviously Disgust is not thrilled about, but they're gonna do it anyway.
Yeah,
The
What is
river
the-
is the
I think-
stream of consciousness.
Yeah.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah,
Yes,
it is
yes.
stream of consciousness. Yeah.
Stream of consciousness.
Because as they're talking about things in the like real world, they pop up in the river. That's like they were talking about broccoli and it appears in the river.
Right. Yes.
I
Okay.
say it's more of a stream than a river.
Because she's like, that's why they're like, I don't know. There's a kind of a fun cut where they're like talking and they're making Riley like things that she doesn't like her anxiety is, where she's like, oh, we always thought that tasted like a cardboard box.
Yeah,
and then when she thinks a cardboard box, it like
Floats
goes by in the river.
Is that like granola bar snack thing that Val was eating? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because Riley and Val are like hanging out, and then Val gives her this like granola bar, power bar, whatever. And Riley doesn't like them. Says it tastes like cardboard. And then you get like cardboard floating down this river and all that stuff. So anxiety in the meantime is dropping more new beliefs. So originally where this I'm a good person belief was, it was like a fully formed belief. Whereas now anxiety is starting, like, because anxiety is forcing this belief on Riley. So it's starting from like a nugget, and anxiety just keeps adding to it to form that fully formed belief for Riley. So kind of like pushing Riley step by step down this path. Now we go to after, like the hangout after, where Riley's hanging with what are they? The something hawks, red hawks?
Firehawks?
Firehawks.
Firehawks.
Yes. Firehawks. And they all have like red little streak in their bangs because they're cool like that. So Riley's hanging out with them.
That's bananas, by the way, as like a prerequisite to join it, like to be part of the club. It's like, you can't be a firehawk unless you dye your hair a little bit. Insane.
Yeah. Is it at this point? I can't remember where Riley has dyed her hair, or is that later?
I think it might be a little later.
That's later?
Yeah,
okay.
Later.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm sure I wrote that down.
Spoilers, she does it.
So they're all hanging out. They keep calling her Michigan, which I wrote is like, I don't know, it's like a weird thing. Maybe I should have saved this, but it's a weird thing to call somebody the town they came from, especially such a large city in America where there's probably multiple people from that city. So it's like, how many
Michigan would be like the least interesting place that someone would have come from.
They're kids. Their nickname game is
I was gonna say, I feel like people nickname
weak.
people based off cities. Like, I don't know, if you're the new kid, I feel like that's not an unknown like trope that you see in
I'm not
shows.
saying it's unknown. I just think it's lame.
I just think there's some bad nicknames that were given out.
Like in Mean Girls where they call her Africa.
That's fair.
I called one of my friends Jiggly J as a nickname, and that stuck for 4 years. Jiggly J. And he never really liked it. So I'm just saying, like, bad nicknames can just happen.
They can stick. You don't get to choose your own
to choose it, yeah.
No.
I always thought a good nickname for me would be Moss.
Moss?
Like algae?
Like algae moss?
Why?
Like LG.
LG.
Oh my God. Laura, that's...
No?
That's got levels.
No, it does.
I was
But
thinking of Carrie Ann
my-
Moss, and when that should have been cooler.
I don't know who that is.
She's Trinity in The Matrix.
Yeah.
I've never seen The Matrix.
Okay, well, that's
Oh
a
my
whole
God.
thing.
Okay, well, moving on for sure.
So Moss isn't happening then. Okay.
no.
So Riley, they're just like hanging out. They're just chatting, talking about things. They're trying to get to know Riley a bit more, asking her like what bands she's into. And I will, disclaimer, I did have to run to the washroom here. So if I miss anything.
Dad, this movie was an hour and a half.
I like literally,
Was it the
I've
stream
got
of
a
consciousness that
system
set you off?
Where I like never go to the washroom during theater movies. I go like right when the trailers are going,
you have
so
a
I miss
system.
the trailers. And but then of course in this one where I'm like having to write stuff, I'm like, oh, I gotta go. We did also have some beers right beforehand. So that
there you
didn't help.
go.
Yeah.
That's
So
really
blame
funny.
Sam. But she, from what I caught anyway, she
I filled him
mentions
in.
a band that isn't cool. And Riley's like, oh yeah, like I love that band back when I was in elementary school. Not in like a mean way, but more just like in a way that Riley is younger than them. And they acknowledge that. And they're like, yeah, like that was a good band when I was younger. But whereas Riley kind of clearly was like, oh shit, I'm not cool. I need to come up with cool stuff. And then through what Sam told me, I guess they went into like which I was like, damn it, I missed such a good joke.
Yeah, it was
It-
really
it-
funny.
It
Yeah,
is a good
you go,
joke.
Sam. You go.
So she's like, I like this band, but then they kind of go into panic mode because they're like, oh no, it wasn't cool. So that's when Inui is like, let me take over. And so she's like, oh yeah, like I like this band. And she starts being all sarcastic about it, which makes in the mind world a sarcasm appear and the ground separates.
That is pretty good.
Yeah. And then the characters, the main main five or whatever that are at this sarcasm are trying to yell for help to some mind workers across the chasm. But whatever they yell, whenever the guys hear it, like the echo across the chasm, it makes it sarcastic. So they're like,
Yeah.
"Hey, you guys, you look like you could help us," and it's like, "You look like you could help us," or like whatever. And so everything they say is just making the mind workers think they're jerks, so they just leave and don't help them because of the sarcasm.
It was fun. It was a fun
Yeah.
thing.
God damn it. I missed the best joke. But I did come back for the end of the party and saw, yeah, just like it seemed kind of like awkward and whatnot.
It's because her
So-
friends enter the picture, right? Like her friends are like,
Yeah,
"Hey,
and
you-
she's being sarcastic to them too.
Yeah,
like,
she's like,
I don't like that band.
we just went to that concert not long ago,
Oh,
that kind
yeah.
of
I
thing.
had
And
the
then
best time.
Right.
that's exactly it. Trying to be cool in front of her new friends.
So yeah, after that, we go back to Joy. They're still in the kind of like deep storage with all the giant bookcases and a maze. So Joy's like, we need a better view. We need to get a vantage point. So they're kind of trying to figure out how to get up there. Joy finds it hard. This is where Joy confesses it's always hard to stay as positive as she is. And Joy basically just starts having like a full-on breakdown in front of the other three emotions, and anger steps up and is like nice and helps her, which I did like this because it kind of shows in the first movie they were all far more their like exact emotions, but
One dimensional. Yeah.
yeah, one dimensional, whereas like now that they're getting older and growing up, it's like there's still those emotions, but there's like a range in there. So it's showing that they're growing and evolving as well. So anger ends up taking this like tube that they suck all the memory ball things with, and they ride that up all the way to the top of one of these bookshelf type things. And yeah, I just have anger as being nice, which doesn't feel like anger, but there you go. Back at headquarters, sadness breaks in. She gets in to the main little headquarters. Yes, thank you. And embarrassment finds her there, and you're like, oh shit, like what's gonna happen? Embarrassment's gonna tell anxiety. This is not good. But embarrassment ends up hiding her and puts more binders around sadness so that she can kind of like hunker down there. And I guess she was looking up how to recall them from the back of the mind.
Wee, wee, wee. Just again.
Oh, yeah. This is where embarrassment
Yeah.
now talks. Yes.
We should also
Yes.
say embarrassment does not talk, at least for 99% of the movie. Like he's just kind of
Yes.
there. So their
Yeah.
interactions are purely based on looking at each other.
Yeah. So we go back to Joy, and now it's just Joy, anger, and
Fear.
And
fear.
no,
Oh, yeah.
disgust.
Disgust
And discuss.
and
Oh,
fear.
and disgust.
Oh, and fear. Right. Oh, there was five.
Four
I
of
don't
them.
think I've mentioned fear yet. So now there's the four of them, and they're going back through Imagination Land, where I was like, oh, this might be fun because this is where I thought we were gonna get the crazy stuff. But Imagination Land has changed quite a bit. But Joy's like, oh, well, Fort Pillow's still here at least. But there's like a weird ominous glow coming out of Fort Pillow now, and it just seems very, very sus. So they go to check it out, and it turns out anxiety has like a labor force
Yeah.
inside the, I guess, inside the
Sweatshop.
Yeah,
yeah, like a
pretty much.
sweatshop. Yeah, sweatshop inside, which they're all like drawing animation. I was like, yeah, this basically seems like an animation studio where they all have their little cubicle and they're drawing up things that then get taken and formed into like full-on futures. And anxiety's just like getting this giant amount of workers to like produce bad futures specifically, not good ones, but it's just like we need to see every single possible, like there are no bad ideas. Just like write it down, anything that could possibly happen. We need more. I need to like see everything.
I think this was a good place to like having that fortress in Imagination Land because Joy makes the observation she's using her imagination against her, which
Yes.
is like what anxiety
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
like using your imagination. So I was like, oh, that's smart.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and so all these like ideas that they're coming up are just like brutal to Riley as well. It's like the absolute worst possible outcomes. So Joy's like, well, Riley's gonna be happier if they're because Joy says that they're hurting Riley with these bad thoughts. Riley's sleeping at this point, I believe, right? Yeah. So it's kind of like in a way nightmares sort of thing because she's running through everything. Basically, Joy puts in some good thoughts, and anxiety pretty quickly figures out that Joy is in there also animating these things. And then anxiety and Joy have a like good versus bad off I wrote. So I guess they're going back and forth with like good
Yeah.
versus bad ideas.
Joy's getting like some of the workers to draw the like good version of stuff. Anxiety's drawing the like getting people to draw the bad version of stuff. And in the beginning, Anxiety's winning off. But then eventually Joy's stuff
She inspires the workers.
people. Yeah. Because Joy's like a celebrity in this
Yeah.
in
Yes.
Riley's mind. Like whenever people see Joy, they're like, oh shit, it's Joy. Oh my gosh. Like even Anxiety said that too. She's like, oh, I'm so happy to meet you. You know, you're a celebrity around here.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, Joy does end up succeeding, and there's like a revolt in this animation studio.
Yeah.
They just turn on anxiety, and yeah, basically, so Joy succeeds in turning that bit around, at least for Riley's sake. The cops show up here to capture our good or the good emotions that we've been following. They run from the cops. Oh, I guess I didn't mention that they passed the head coach's office. And there was like a notebook in there that the other girls, the high school girls, are like, oh, that book has like everything the coach thinks about you, whether you're good or bad or going to make the team and blah, blah, blah. So it's in this where anxiety, because Joy has exceeded, anxiety is just like, we need to go like DEF CON. We got to like go full on, do anything possible now to like make sure that we get the final skate is that morning to figure out if they're going to succeed or not and get friends.
And like the score so far is like Riley's first skirmish or whatever. She wasn't doing very well. The second time she was doing really good. And now the anxiety setting in is that, oh, we got to do as best as possible to set us up for success next year.
Yeah, and she knows that Val scored 2 goals to make it last time, and that was like unheard of. Nobody's ever done that.
It's just 2 goals. It doesn't seem like
It's 2 goals.
It doesn't seem like much.
I mean, we don't know how long these games are. Maybe they're like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So yeah, anxiety and them decide to sneak into the office and read that notebook. So they're gonna like get Riley to break in to the high school and get to the office to read that book. So Riley doesn't want to, though. She's very hesitant to do it, but anxiety basically like overrides what Riley wants to do, to be like, no, you're doing this, and like forces Riley to actually go, which I thought was interesting. So yeah, Riley does break into this office. She's almost caught though. There's a guard coming with the classic movie thing where the lights come around the corner and Riley like gets in and closes the door just in time and then manages to lock it just in time. So yeah, almost caught, but she's good. So then we're back to the headquarters again. Sadness tries to save Riley, but anxiety gets her stopped, and then anxiety tells Sadness like it's not about who Riley is, it's about who Riley needs to be according to anxiety. But Riley's not ready yet. And then this is where anxiety's like, we need a brainstorm. We got to like think of all the ideas we possibly can. Oh, because she read the book and saw that that's what the not ready yet is. She read the book and the coach said Riley's not ready yet in the book. So then anxiety's like, oh my God, we got to like do something tomorrow in this game that just like makes the head coach be like, override that idea. Like Riley's the best hockey player of all time kind of thing. And this whole thing was really cool. So you get like where go back to the characters in the mind, and there's like a literal brainstorm in Riley's mind, like a tornado of thought gems, or like the
They're
globes.
light bulbs, right?
Light bulb.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
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 So light bulbs are like flying around. The original emotions that we've been following, Joy and all of them, they had grabbed like the Chief Justice of Supreme Court to get away from a balloon to get away from the cops back at the Imagination Land. So they're like riding this balloon, this giant like Bart Simpson style balloon,
Parade balloon.
parade balloon. Thank you. And they get caught up in the storm, and Joy's trying to like destroy all these ideas because they're all bad ideas. So she's like breaking them as they fly by. But they see this like funnel at the top, or I guess it's like where it goes to the back of the mind, or it goes to the headquarters. So they know they have to get there. And then a big idea is formed because anxiety's like, these are too small. These aren't good enough. We need like a big idea. And then we get a massive idea, and they decide to ride that idea up to the funnel thing to get suctioned off. But they end up falling. The big idea goes to headquarters, and they're falling, and Fear's like, hold on to me. And then Fear had a parachute. Fear actually did something in this movie. I feel like you don't really get to do anything with Fear until now. Yeah, they parachute.
And I feel like he had a parachute because the whole movie, the only thing he ever says is how he kind of admires anxiety, which makes sense to me because I feel like anxiety is like an offshoot of fear. And so for when he whipped out the parachute, I'm like, yeah, because you're anxious, so you probably carry around a parachute. Like it just kind of makes sense.
He has like safety stuff in place because he's afraid of everything. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. So they basically land and it's like, okay, continue on to the back of mind. Very cool sequence though. I did like that whole idea brainstorm thing. That was really neat. So this is now where Riley now dyes her hair because she's like, she's going hardcore now.
It's a big idea. Of course she's gonna dye her hair.
Yeah. Which, I mean, she's not on the team yet. You only get to dye your hair, your bangs when you're on the team. So she's kind of overstepping here.
For sure.
And trying to like be like, well, my hair's dyed, so therefore I need to be on the team.
Like that's like giving yourself like a motorcycle tattoo before you're like in the gang itself. It's like, hey man, I'm one of the I don't know, the Red Hawk Skull Bones. No, you're not. You haven't even done the initiation yet.
Exactly. So Riley sees her friends or her old friends. That's really awkward again. Riley is being weird, I have written, and she needs 3 goals. Anxiety's decided that's the big idea. Is like we'll dye our hair and we'll get 3 goals, and we will succeed in every.
Sounds like a solution.
Yeah, everything will then go right for us if we do that.
3 goals at any cost, I think, was the big idea, though.
Correct. Yes. Yeah, she needs to do whatever she has to do. Cutthroat. So Joy and the others, they arrive at the back of the mine finally, but it's just like a giant mountain of thoughts that they'd sent back there. And Joy's like, oh, I didn't realize we like sent so many back here. So they start climbing it to try to find the sense of self that was sent back there, which is I'm a good person. They're looking for that. Anxiety finishes Anxiety's version of Riley's sense of self, and it says I'm not good enough, which is like pretty intense.
Which also Anxiety did not mean to do that. You can see like once that belief formed, she's like, oh shit, that's not what I wanted out of all of this. Yeah, and then Anxiety starts going in a little bit of a panic mode after that.
Yes. So in the meantime, embarrassment helps sadness because they had, what was it? Sadness was like tied up or
like,
something?
Like in a bucket.
In a bucket. Suspended from the ceiling so she couldn't get out.
Classic torture system.
So embarrassment helps sadness. Joy, they have found the sense of self in the back of the mind, and Joy radios sadness to be like, now, like, bring us back to headquarters now. So sadness is trying to do that. And in the commotion, Anxiety is trying to stop sadness and ends up breaking the tube that they would have ridden back and just like crumbles all the way back to the back of the mind. And yeah, they don't have any way to get back to the headquarters, at least easily now. So Joy is now sad, and Joy doesn't know what to do anymore, specifically about Anxiety, but she's just like, I don't know. I don't know what to do.
Okay, I think this is the scene, right? With Joy. Like, I'm pretty sure it's in this moment. I wrote it down because it made me cry. Because this is the moment when like Joy's feeling the most defeated, right? And she's like looking at the balls and she's having her moment. Like you just go on Joy and it's really dark and kind of melancholy before we get the rest of the movie. But the quote that's been going around the internet and the quote that like sticks with my mind was, I don't know how to stop anxiety. Maybe that's what happens when you grow up. You feel less joy. And I'm like, oh my God. Like that's like, I don't know. It feels like a very real, no, it is real. It's just like a real statement. And I think they just handled that part really well. And especially the way Amy Poehler like delivers that line.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you had that written down. I didn't quite get the full quote. So yeah, it's pretty gut punching. Pretty good. So we're back with Riley during this very, very important hockey game, or she perceives to be a very important hockey game. And Riley is just playing like really selfishly, really hardcore. She does got skills though. You got to give her that at least. But she's like she's not passing to anybody. She's hogging the puck. She's even like bumping into her own teammates, stealing pucks from them. Just really trying to get those 3 goals. Just being not a good team player. And this is where the original emotions in the back of the mind, trying to figure out what they can do. And Anger has an idea and calls, oh, Pouchy. And so, yeah, you get Pouchy shows up again. And Pouchy does is like, oh, like they're like, Pouchy, like, do you have any way for us to get back to headquarters? And then Pouchy does its thing of like, oh, what do you think they could use to the audience? And of course, dynamite comes up again.
I think
And then
this
they
is
just,
funny
yep.
bit because Anger, like as soon as the dynamite comes, he's just like, fuck this. And he like grabs Pouchy and just sticks his whole hand in his mouth and just
Yeah.
grabs as much dynamite as he possibly can.
Yeah. So they decide they need a lot of dynamite.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I think they say they need a lot of dynamite because they're basically gonna like blow up this mountain of thoughts in the back of the mind and like ride that wave back to the headquarter area. So Riley, back with Riley, not being a good team player. She's not being cool. Joy and them do blow up that giant mountain and they're riding the big wave. Also very cool sequence, I thought. And with Riley, oh no, what would she do? She like checked somebody or something.
She like,
she
yeah, it's like her
demoed
friend.
her friend.
Yeah, like,
Grace.
like rocked her.
Walks her
Grace out.
up. And like
Yeah.
everybody's helping her friend, but she's not.
Everyone's horrified.
Yeah, it was pretty horrifying how hard Riley hits her friend and gets a justified penalty. And
Only
goes
2
back.
minutes though.
Yeah, but
Only a
a lot
minor.
happens in those 2 minutes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she hurt her friend, and Anxiety is trying to fix it. Anxiety realizes that like things are kind of like getting out of Anxiety's hands, so Anxiety's trying to like recognizes that and is trying to like fix things, but in a way is also just making things worse. So the original emotions, Joy in them, they arrive at the belief system area
Yeah.
that we originally talked about with all like the strings going up into the sky that like makes all this. So all of this like flood that they rode arrives at this area, and all the back of the head thoughts start getting absorbed and becoming part of Riley's core beliefs, which Joy is like, I didn't mean for those to become part of Riley. Like I just wanted to put this one in here. So yeah, Joy is planning on doing that. And Anxiety realizes that she's putting too much pressure on Riley. This is all while Riley's in the box, the penalty box as well. So the original emotions, they arrive. Anxiety has gone crazy and turned into this like basically a tornado at the console because she's moving so fast, trying to fix things, trying to put things right and predict things in the future. And she's just like ripping around. It's like a literal blur. And Joy manages to like break through that tornado to the console. And you kind of see Anxiety standing there, and Joy goes to like touch her, but Anxiety's not actually there because she's moving so fast. She's like everywhere at once.
I really like this sequence too because it feels like an anxiety attack. It feels like when anxiety's so in control of what you're doing that you can't physically step away from it. And that's what's like, it felt like that emotion was going through is like, you could see Anxiety's eyeball being like, I don't want to actually be in this moment right now. I've done too much and I can't. And then, yeah, Joy helps out.
Yeah, Joy speaks to Anxiety and kind of pulls Anxiety back from the brink of just this craziness that she's going through. So Joy breaks her Anxiety out of it, and Joy manages to convince them to let her put that core belief back of being, I'm a good person, is what they want to put back. So in the meantime, all Riley's memories from the back of the head start forming who she is, and Joy puts the good person belief back. This is where we realize Riley is complex. Like, it's not just like, I'm a good person. There's like, I slammed the door on my parents that one time. It's like all these little, like each moment in Riley's life builds upon each other and makes Riley who she is, not just that one belief. And so they all, sorry, I'm trying to read this. They all huge Riley emotions.
Hug.
Hug.
Yeah.
Thank you. They all hug. Riley emotion belief.
Well, it's like Joy has the original I'm a good person belief, and then it's like, no. And then they like break it. Well, I guess they break off the first one.
Yeah, they break off the
they break
anxiety
off
one.
the bad one. They put the good one, and then they all hug the good one.
Well, because the good one keeps morphing into other ones, right? Like it changes colors. And I thought this sequence was really, really well done.
And
Yes.
it had both curves and angles at the end.
Yeah, it's a little bit of everything. And yeah, all the emotions then hug the belief, which was very sweet. It's like because Riley's like just going crazy in the penalty box, like hyperventilating, clearly like having an anxiety attack. Yeah. And yeah, they all hug the emotion, which is very cute, and it does calm Riley down.
Did this make anyone else feel? Was it me? This did nothing for you, Sam? Oh, I loved it.
It did not.
Oh, I thought it was cute.
I thought it was so
very
sweet.
nice.
I think
What got me was before this, actually, when Joy pulls anxiety out of like the storm around the board, and anxiety looks up at her and she's like, I was only trying to protect her or something. And I was like, oh my God. Oh yeah, that's it.
I liked all of this final bit here. I thought that was really well done.
Yes,
Sometimes
very
you need
well
a
done.
hug, man. Sometimes you need a hug.
But your
So yeah,
emotions can't actually hug you.
No.
Was somebody hugging Riley in the
No.
external world? Like, no one's
No.
actually helping her.
She had
here.
her head between her knees.
But
She's
her
in the penalty
emotions
box.
are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Sometimes
I'm just
self-love
saying,
is good.
in the first one, I feel like, the big moment is she's like finally crying to her parents about everything. So there's like kind of a reflection of what's happening in the inside with what's happening on the outside. Like the parents are hugging her. She's finally letting sadness out. And
Yeah.
like that's what's happening in her head. Whereas here it's like kind of more happening in her head than externally. She's just like
But isn't that
breathing
like
kind of.
how
that is an anxiety attack.
That is how
a
you. I
panic
know,
attack.
but like, it just doesn't. It's not a perfect mirror. Like Joy pulling her out is not what's happening on the outside. It's just not as clear. It's just not as clear.
I agree, Sam. I think like in the first movie we had this very tactile, like this is what she did in this situation in order to process her emotions. Whereas in this movie it was like her emotions were processing
Driving
themselves.
everything. Yeah.
And she was just like along for the ride.
But isn't that just like I'm gonna not play devil's advocate because I believe in this, but that it feels true to what those situations are. It's a lot of the times it's our own internal emotions that have to work itself out to get ourselves out of those funks. So for all of her emotions to hug herself, it makes sense because like if I'm alone and I'm having like a moment where I'm just like kind of freaking out or whatever like that, it takes all of my emotions to calm me down. And maybe it's not like I'm talking to Laura who calms me down or some external factor. It's me that needs to reconcile what's happening. To get
Yeah,
into my
and I don't
moment.
feel Riley thinking anything in this movie, though, is what I'm saying. Is like, I
Yeah.
just feel like it's all happening to her, and we don't get any thought, which, like, I don't know. It's not like she was speaking all loud a lot in the first one, but I kind of, like, understood what her thought process was, and it was, like, mirroring it. Whereas this one, I just don't feel Riley there at all. So that's
right.
just, I like what's happening in her mind, and I'm not saying, like, it's not fun to watch still. It's just there's a disconnect that I felt like from the beginning of this film through to the end where it was like, yeah, like they're just driving her around.
And to me, where it gets resolved is probably what Brad's going to say next about like the glow to Joy. Like when you see like the console sort of like these lights between Joy and the console, and then Sadness says to Joy, she wants you, like Riley wants you to lead. And to me, that's like a conscious decision on the part of Riley of like, okay, I am in this situation and I'm choosing Joy right now. And that's what's making me better. But up until that point, it felt a little bit like Riley was just a passenger.
Just because you said that moment already, I really like that moment too.
Yes, yeah, we'll get there for sure. I thought it all worked pretty well. I mean, they're setting it up that puberty is your emotions driving you, so it's like Riley has no control in this moment, so it's not her overcoming it. And like having seen people have panic attacks in real life, there is nothing like hugging them's not going to calm them down. Like even if you tell them like you're safe here, that kind of stuff, like it's still up to them. Like they need to work through it and come down from it. So it's not an external force, but an internal force that helps. So I thought it worked pretty well for me at least.
Me
But
too.
That actually
anyway.
reminded me of a line, if you don't mind me bringing it up,
Yeah.
that I think we skipped over earlier in the movie. I can't remember when it was, but I remember Joy was making a plan and she was like, and then we just tell anxiety that she has nothing to be anxious about and
Yeah.
everything is better.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Joy gives really like, have you tried yoga vibes to the situation.
She's positive.
So with that all being said, that's what the penalty box is for.
Self-reflection.
Yeah, I forget what movie it's from, and I'm definitely gonna misquote it, but it's like you do something bad, you go into the penalty box, you think about what you've done, and then you come out of the penalty box. I can't
And you're
remember the
never
movie,
going to do that thing again.
though. Exactly. Yeah, Riley's kind of like calmed down, centered herself again. Her old friends like can see her while she's in the box. She's clearly like having an anxiety attack, a panic attack kind of thing. So her friends come over. She confesses to her friends that she's being a jerk and kind of like finally tells them like, I don't like that. You're not going to be coming to my school with me next year and all that kind of stuff. So they kind of hash it out a little bit. But at the end of the day, her friends are her friends, and they do kind of like a fist pump pound type thing or whatever, like a little handshake friendly thing when it's back to the game. So I thought this was nice that when Riley leaves the penalty box, she kind of looks up to the really big windows in the arena, and this like very bright light just shines through the windows. It's very beautiful. And we then go into the mind, and this is now where we see like shiny particles, like yellow particles drifting towards the console. And Sadness says that Riley is calling out to Joy to come back to her, which is very cute. I wrote cute. So yeah, very, very tender moment.
I agree.
And Joy walks forward, takes over the console again. And we get like a sequence where Joy is basically just like playing jazz on this console.
Yeah.
Just like they're in sync, and it's like the way Joy is moving around the console is all the other emotions are like in awe of how Joy is playing with, well, not playing with Riley. Well, I guess playing with Riley.
It's funny
Yeah.
because like they do more, a lot of the times when they're controlling the console in this movie, it's like they just have to just touch the board and then something happens. They don't actually have to press too many buttons, but every once in a while they're like turning a little bit like a wheel or something
Yeah,
like that.
DJ style, constantly touching things.
And I think like earlier in the movie, like when she starts going through puberty, it's like the slightest touch of like anger or disgust causes like a
Right.
big like
Everything was amplified.
Exactly.
Yes.
But I wanted to call out when the final moment, which this is why this moment works really well for me. I think it's just like beautiful, but also it calls back to Inside Out 1, I think. That's how I interpreted it, which is in Inside Out 1, we get Joy skating freely and joyously to the theme song of Inside Out. And that's just happening. And in this movie, we get a very similar thing where we get the music again, but it's now Riley skating and Joy taking the wheel for that. And I think that was a cool like parallel.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, Riley, she's just basically now like having fun playing hockey. It's now back to, I think at one point anxiety, or I think it's anxiety, is like, this isn't a game, it's a sport. It's like we have to, like, it's not fun. We have to work and get better. Whereas now Riley's back to like playing a game. It's fun for her. And I did write here, I don't know hockey that well, but the final shot, I was like, pretty sure that's icing. But,
Also, it looked like everyone was skating in the same direction. Like one of the defense players was like just beside her skating forwards, and I was like, I don't think that's correct.
Yeah, so but they're having fun. That's the point.
Yeah.
So now it's the next day. Riley's hanging out with Val and the high school girls there, and she's waiting with her phone, waiting for the coach to post if Riley made the team and just the general results. This is where we see Joy is basically good now with like all emotions. The emotions all like Riley. Every bit of Riley makes her who she is, which, I don't know. It's kind of similar to the first movie where Joy was like all controlling and was like, no, like like Joy is the main emotion. Whereas much like the first one, this one is seeing Joy grow and be like, all emotions are important. Like there is a place for anxiety in there, that kind of stuff. So her phone goes off, and that's basically the final shot. We don't actually find out if she made, or I guess she got like a text from her friends as well of them being like goofy, and she's like, oh, I like my friends. And the final shot is like her phone goes off, and I think Val is like, oh, did you make it? And Riley just smiles, and that's the final shot. And
I think she made it.
Oh yeah, I definitely think she did. I think that's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
So that's the end, and then the credits start, and we have Riley having dinner around the table with her parents, and the parents are like, "How were your 3 days at camp?" And this is where I wrote 3 days. I didn't realize it was 3 days. Yeah. So Riley's going through like all of her emotions, anxieties, like, oh, we got to say this and say that about, and they're like all freaking out, like, what do we say? Do we tell them that we broke into the coach's office and all that stuff? And then she just ends up saying good on we as her say good.
I like how at the end too, anxiety gets like a massage chair and like, like anxiety as well.
And a candle.
I think that's really
the
that's
only thing
touch.
missing was a comforting blanket. That's basically the corner of my office.
Yeah, it's cute that Joy kind of knows how to work with each emotion, and like when they start getting a little too worked up, it's like, oh, let's do this, so embarrassment this and blah blah. Yeah, and then the only other thing I really well, I guess two more things. So at the very end of the credits, I thought this was cute. Was I saw they had a thing which was just like the employees, all I have is love you just the way you are. So I think it's like to all their family, which I thought was very cute. And then we get like an after credit scene. Did you guys see this?
We laughed.
Stay for this?
And then Tung tried to run
I tried to
back
run
in.
back in, but then I read it like, I ran back into the wrong theater.
Yeah. So yeah, we do get an after credit scene where Joy goes back in for this deep dark secret because they kind of hint at it. And when they originally broke out, the deep dark secret was like, it's not time yet. I'm gonna go back in and hide. We find out that the deep dark secret is when Riley burned a hole in a rug. And Joy was like, oh, that's it. I thought it was going to be when we peed in a pool. And then it kind of goes off. So, yeah, and that's Inside Out 2.
Yay. Wow. What a great summary, Brad, for like seeing it. I mean, I know you just saw it yesterday, so it's fresh, but also like just wonderful, wonderful work.
Yes.
Look at us.
His notes looked a lot better than yours.
Look at that writing.
How did you write it like the lines?
I'm like shocked.
How did
there
you
was
do
only
that?
one time where I wrote over what I had written.
Were you close to the screen?
No, we were like.
So your lighting
mid.
wasn't
And
better.
you're wearing 3D glasses. That's crazy.
like I left the theater and looked, and I was like, as if I actually wrote legibly.
Wow, that's insane. Well, thank you, Brad, for the great summary of Inside Out 2. Let's go right into our thoughts and feelings. Laura, I'd like to hear yours.
Yeah. Overall, I enjoyed it, but I think it suffers from like the Pixar sequel curse of like, it's just not as good as the original to me. I really liked the humor used throughout. I laughed out loud quite a lot during the movie. But to me, the avalanche of emotions and like putting all of her like the suppressed emotions or memories, into the pool that led to core beliefs at the end, like that resolution felt very, very similar to me to like all of our emotions need to work together in the first one. So I guess I wanted something like a little bit different or maybe a little bit more complex than what we got there. And this kind of goes into the debate we were having about her panic attack and like the emotions hugging her and that sort of thing. Like I feel like they made that joke that I mentioned earlier about like, yeah, just tell anxiety to there's nothing to be anxious about. It kind of felt like that was the resolution that they provided though, was just like, oh yeah, you just have to let Joy lead. And I actually like I love the reminder to let Joy lead as like a reminder for the adults watching the film because of that line that you mentioned earlier, Tung, about how like maybe you just feel less joy as you get older. And I think there is an element of choice in that the things, the ways that we choose to spend our time and the perspectives that we choose to take on things can have an impact on the amount of joy that we can have in our life. But like this idea that you can just like, oh yeah, anxiety just needs to coexist with joy and sadness and fear and all of these other things. It's like, well, I think it's a little bit more complicated than that in the sense that like anxiety, it is anxiety. Sadness can be kind of a stand-in for depression if we're talking about like medical conditions and that sort of thing. And to say that like, yeah, you just need to like let anxiety be balanced with the other things. It's like, well, actually, no, like sometimes with sadness and anxiety, you need therapy and you might need medication or like it's more than just like acknowledging all of your emotions. So to me, that was like a little bit, not that they needed to like really get into that, but if you're going to talk about these big topics, I feel like you need to address that. Like there are differences between these emotions and how they need to be handled. Those are my thoughts.
Fair enough. Sam, I feel like you're resonating with Laura, so let's go to you.
Yeah, similar vein. I thought it was like fine, but I did feel like sequelitis pretty hard. Like I felt like a lot of the beats kind of felt the same. They get banished into the mine and have to work their way back. Even like her emotional moment that we were talking about, I was like, this is too similar for me. She's in the dark on a pile of orbs again, crying about something. It like almost felt like the same shot to me. She's saying something different.
Pit with Bing Bong.
Yeah, I was like, this is so similar. And instead of Bing Bong, we've got the new pouch guy, and like, and then instead of looking for the core memory, we're looking for the core belief. And I was just like, that for me, I don't know. I was just like, I can't break out of this like being such a sequel. But I did like the depiction of anxiety. That's the thing. It's like I thought, again, I would agree with Laura, the resolution to it. I was like, but I thought like the like visual representation of anxiety as a character I liked. Like the character seemed like, I'm like, yep, that's what anxiety probably looks like, and like calming her down and stuff. But yeah, it was just more like the themes and stuff that I feel like didn't hit as they weren't quite as coherent to me as the first one. So it did feel like just putting the same characters on an adventure and throwing in more without having a ton to say. We don't like spend it like, again, we already talked about how I don't feel like we spend that much time with like Riley on the outside, aside from just like showing what they're kind of like making her do. But yeah, I mean, it looked nice, I guess. I don't think I would ever watch it again over the first one. And I think it was hard for me to also get out of the fact that I was like, we already just got this amazing like puberty story. They're different stories, granted, but it's just because this one's more general, and exactly what they said in that article that dropped, that it's just more mass appeal, more like less specifics. And I hate it. And I'm not going to lie. It did, like, it was hard for me to push that away to enjoy this film, because I'm like, we're just going to keep getting these like watered down sequel stories now, and I'd rather just get something original. So I'm bitter about it, and I think I took my bitterness into this movie and was like, I would have rather this been an original something else. And as much as I tried to like not let that taint my mind, it was just there. I was like, this is a sequel, we're getting sequels now.
It was part of Sam's belief system already.
It's part of my belief system that
I reinforced it.
Pluck Sam's violin string. It's like,
I hate sequels.
Stupid Pixar. Stupid Pete Doctor.
Yeah, like I want a coming of age story with specifics, not just like we went to hockey camp and like had this panic attack and it's the end.
Sam, can we go back to something you said at the beginning of the podcast, where you saw the teaser or the first trailer and you were like, this better not be queer baiting.
And then it was.
Yeah.
Well, there's no romance talked about
what
in
do
this
you
movie
mean?
at all,
Where?
which is fine. So in the first trailer, I rewatched it before we podcasted because I was like, maybe it was in my head or whatever. And it's not like that bad, but the shots that they show of that, what's her name? Val, the way they show it, it's like through this like softened lens, like that she's looking at her, and it's like
the way you show a crush.
It's the way they show it in the trailer, the way you would like depict a crush, but that's not what it is.
But in the movie, it's how they depict an idol. Like, it's different.
But that's not what the trailer does. And so, which is why I said to Laura when it dropped, I was like, are we being queer baited again? And the answer is yes, we were, because there's no romance to this, which is fine. I'm like, I don't need it to be there, but it was just like such an editing decision to me that I'm like, yeah, all right.
We do get the romance between Disgust and Lance/Blade.
Yes, we do, which is fine. And I'm not saying that a puberty coming of age story even needs a crush, but it's also weird that it doesn't. Again, it's just like, maybe you're asexual or aromantic or this or that, but we're just not gonna like explore any of that, which again is fine right now. Maybe they'll do it later. Don't
worry, Sam, we'll get an Inside Out 3.
I'm sure we will. I'm sure we will. That's my thoughts. It was fine. I would have liked it better if I wasn't so mad at Pixar, probably, because I think it was fine in the way that I liked Finding Dory. I was like, Finding Dory was fine. It also felt like a sequel, and I feel like I just feel the same about this one. So fine. It was fine.
Wait, so what I'm hearing is it was fine from you, Sam.
It was fine.
Okay. Yeah. Usually Sam changes her name to like something to like to fit the movie, but today it's just Sam. So it was fine.
I think it's Sam Wee.
Yeah, it would have been Sam Wee.
Sam Wee. Oh, that would have been so good. That was the one. That's the one. Pretend I did that.
Brad, what do you think?
I did like this movie. I feel like I would need to see it again to actually form my opinions, because I tried to pay attention, but like taking notes and watching it is not hard. Yeah, it's not the same experience as like actually just enjoying the movie and taking it all in. So maybe on second views, second viewing, my thoughts would change. But I liked it. I liked the new characters. I did like how they were like representing the anxiety taking over, and like I liked all that stuff and the penalty box, like kind of coming down off of it and everything. I thought it personally all worked pretty well for me at least. I think the first movie is the better movie for sure, but I think at the moment anyway, would watch the second one over the first one.
Yeah, I'd watch
But I
it
mean,
again.
I feel like I'm more on record with being like, I guess I want that more general audience pleasing vibe where I'm like, I just want to have like a good time with my movies and not go through like emotional trauma like you do with the first one. So I think this one's a little bit more up my alley, but I do obviously acknowledge like that the first one is, I do think, the better movie. But I always get annoyed by sadness in the first movie because I'm just like, oh, fucking sadness. Whereas like this one,
You sound like Joy.
yeah, I like this one because like, I feel like you don't get as much of the original group. They each have their kind of little moment.
That's funny. I think you get more out of the original group in this movie than you do in the first movie. Because in
'Cause
the
they
first
go along
movie,
on the
Yeah,
adventure.
that's
in the
true.
first movie, it's joy and sadness the most of the way, right? But in this movie, pretty much every of the core emotions from the first movie get to do with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. And so yeah, I liked that. I did like that a lot more of it took place because I'm trying to remember now. I had this all in my mind and then I guess it went to long-term storage because I can't remember how I was gonna say all this now. But the way the story was told, like the dynamic of the emotions and Riley, like that I did prefer over the last movie because it felt like to me there was more of a range of emotions that Riley was going through, whereas the last movie it was more like she just got very, very sad, and then it was about like bringing Riley out of that depression. So I liked it. That's my review. Is I liked it. I would watch it again. I don't know if I will watch it again, but I might watch it again. And the last thing I was when I was running to the washroom, I overheard this little girl with her mom. They'd clearly just come out of the movie, and this little girl was like, "Anxiety's my favorite." And the mom was like, "Oh, really? Why is that?" And then I couldn't hear the rest, but I was like, "That is a hilarious statement to be like, I love anxiety."
Yeah. I'll go right into my thoughts, and I'm going to bounce off of what you just said for a moment here. I think this movie, I like this movie, to be clear. I mean, I think it's already obvious. And I think, you know, I love the first one. I already just said that at the beginning of the episode. So I think there was like, the hesitation was like, will this movie meet my expectations of what a sequel can be? I know we have sequelitis in this group sometimes with things. I certainly do. I was still looking forward to this movie because it's been so long since the first movie. And this movie made sense for a sequel. Like it actually has a real progression to show us something that is a real thing. It's the next step in life, and they can show that on the big screen, whereas opposed to like some of the other movies sequels that we got, like Finding Dory. Did we need to see a sequel of Dory? I don't think so. It was a fine movie, but we didn't need to see that. Here it's like they introduced the basic emotions in the first movie, right? So joy, sadness, fear, disgust, anger. And I think that's what the whole movie is about, is just that it's okay to accept different stages of those emotions, and those can meld together. That's like the lesson by the end of it. It's okay to find or be sad and joyous at the same time. Where I do think the messaging in here sounds like it's the same, but it's not. Like beliefs are very different than your emotions. Your emotions create your beliefs, as we literally see in this movie. And it's okay that beliefs didn't exist in the first movie because you're too young to have any real beliefs. I think about my like cousins and nephews. They don't have beliefs right now, you know, like they're kids. They don't need to have that stuff. But when you hit puberty, your emotions and your belief systems get really muddled and fuzzy and complicated. And I think that was like a wonderfully beautiful representation of how they do it at the end of the movie. Of course, it's similar where it's just like, oh, it's actually combining all these things create Riley, all these bad and good beliefs. But I think like they handled it well, and I am sucker for a good hug at the end, so it was good. And like the console calling for joy was really nice too. But going back to what Brad said about like anxiety being my favorite, I was talking to a colleague of mine, And she was taking her kids to Inside Out 2 this past weekend. And one of her kids, who's younger than Riley, she gets anxiety, right? And so she felt from this trailer she could learn a thing or two about, like, the way she introduces herself to people apparently is, "Hi, my name is this. I have anxiety." And she only got to that point because she went through like therapy and things like that as a child and stuff. So I think like just like the first movie, I think this movie has a place in the school system. Laura's going to talk about it later, where our nephew went on to a field trip to go see this movie, right? So I think in this movie, same thing. It's like there are emotions and feelings in here that should be represented on the big screen, and I'm very happy they get represented on the big screen. We should normalize the emotions of anxiety and envy and those embarrassment, because those are completely normal things. And I think about the way we grew up, and the only emotions that we were allowed to feel were like, you gotta be brave, you gotta fight for what you believe in, and don't be sad because everything's gonna turn around.
You gotta be happy, which also they say in these.
Yeah. So I think it's a cool thing that we are starting to see that more, especially like a movie like Inside Out, which is all about emotions, to normalize these like big things that are real for kids to see and for adults to see. Again, like I'm jumping ahead, but like I listened to a podcast where the psychologist for Inside Out 1 was approached by some man, and the man came up to the psychologist and was like, "Hey, I heard you did Inside Out 1, and I just want to make sure I got this right. It's okay to feel sad sometimes?" And the guy said, "Yeah, it's okay to feel sad." And then the guy started bawling in front of the psychologist, and I'm like, okay, This is what these movies are for, man. Like, and if this movie can do that for people who feel anxious, envious, boredom, whatever, then we did it, guys. Like, that's great. And like, that's why I think this movie beats the whole sequelitis stuff, because some of those sequels don't need to exist. They do, and they're good. But this one, I think, is great. We have different opinions in this room, but regardless, I think it's still an important story to tell. And I think they tell it well. And like, kind of like I'm with Brad's camp here. I felt like the whole, like, I didn't feel a disconnect between Riley and the emotions, but that's where I stand on that. I'll have more to say in a bit because I don't want to bleed too much into Laura's Pixar particulars. So yeah, overall, enjoyed it. I laughed. I cried. Couldn't have asked for a better time for a sequel. And yeah, I mean, like, Inside Out 1 is always going to be probably my favorite one, but I would watch the second one again because I want to like give it another go. Maybe I'm just high off of the movie, and maybe in a few months I might not be. But I really, really did enjoy my time. Okay, so the source material is directed by Kelsey Mann instead of Pete Docter. Pete Docter did the first Inside Out. And yeah, I don't want to step too much on your stuff, Laura. So
you best not.
I'll just get to this part here. The film features Pixar Chief Creatives Officers Pete Docter's 5 to 27 emotions. That's in quotes. 5 to 27 emotions idea from the first film that Mann pitched during its production to utilize truthful world building. And all that's to say is that, like, we start off with some basic emotions, and then as we get older, more get introduced into the whole thing. I think that's all I want to say about that for now. So how about I go to, excuse me, LG Moss.
No, it would just be Moss.
Oh, sorry. No, just Moss. Just It's because of the algae.
That's embarrassing for you.
All right. Moss Gordon?
Nope, just Moss.
Okay. What do you got? Pixar particulars.
Speaking of Pete Docter and Kelsey Mann, did you know that they grew up just one town over from each other?
I did not know that.
Do you want to guess what state?
Michigan?
Minnesota.
Is Michigan a state? I don't know.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes, it is definitely a state. It's one of the many M states. So when Maya Hawke was auditioning for the role of Anxiety, and they were like confirming an audition time for her, Kelsey Mann, the director's family, was on vacation at Disney World, but they were like, this is the only time that works. So he had to like go to this office behind the Mexico Pavilion in Epcot and do like a virtual interview with her then. And apparently he cried.
Aww.
He cried during it, and she got the role. While they were exploring ideas for like what Riley's expanded mind would look like, they storyboarded ideas around Procrastination Land that was going to have a sign that said always under construction. I thought that was pretty funny, but it had to get cut. I was looking.
They didn't get around to it.
They didn't get around to it. Nailed it.
Procrastinate.
Riley, apparently, along with, what's her favorite band called? I can't remember.
I don't remember.
It's not Four Town, but she also had a Four Town poster hanging in her room. Lance /Blade is voiced by Yang Ye, who's a professional video game voice actor who contributed to Final Fantasy. Two of the subconscious guards from Inside Out, the first one, are also in this one, and their names are Frank and Dave, named after the actors who voiced them, Frank Oz and Dave Geltz. And Frank Oz is one of the most famous puppeteers in American cinema, did the original voice and puppets for Miss Piggy, Fozzie Bear, Cookie Monster, Bert, and Grover. And Dave Geltz is one of his close friends and coworkers who voiced Gonzo, Dr. Bunsen, Honeydew, and more characters from the original Muppets. Other nods to like famous puppeteers, I guess that was a thing that Kelsey Mann wanted to do, is that when Riley goes to hang out with Valentino and her teammates after hockey camp, the girls order pizza, and the pizza box that they get says Spinny's Pizza, and that's after Carol Spinney, who's the original puppeteer behind Sesame Street's Big Bird.
Why all the puppets?
I don't know. I guess
is it because the emotions are puppeteering Riley? Maybe that's the connection I'm making.
That's
here.
fine.
Could be.
That's
I feel like
what I'm assuming. Yeah.
I feel like their texture is also kind of puppet like they sort of try and make them look
felty.
like almost felty. Yeah, exactly, but more sparkly.
Can we just before you go on? I just thought this whole puppeteering thing. I don't know where to put this, but you know how so these emotions control Riley, but sometimes Riley just goes on her own autopilot, but she still experiences some of those emotions herself. I don't know if that makes sense, but sometimes when she's on autopilot, she can be experiencing a form of joy or anger. She's not monotone without the emotions controlling her through the console. Did anyone else notice that?
I feel like it's more like the world. It's like the emotions are reacting to the world around Riley.
Yeah.
So it's like things like Riley's doing things, and then there's repercussions or things happen because Riley did that, and then the emotions
they step in,
decide how Riley is going to react to that, and it's kind of it's a constant ping pong back and forth where it's like because the emotions did something, Riley does it, then the world reacts to Riley, and then the emotions react to that. And so it's like a reciprocal or whatever.
Okay. Yeah.
That's how I take it anyway. But yeah, puppeting still in a way.
Puppeting.
Puppeting. Also related to references that we don't entirely understand, like puppeting.
Puppeteering?
Puppeteering. Thank you. Puppeting. What's the thing? So the Fort Pillow Town factory with all the workers and stuff. Apparently that is a reference to the original Mac commercial. Has anyone seen that one?
Yeah.
Where, the 1984 vibe one where they throw a giant spear or sledgehammer at the screen, but here they throw a chair. So deep cut for Gen X and previous generations.
Yeah.
I mean, millennials have seen that, but on YouTube.
It's true. Now that I think about it, that's very 1984 Jordan with the anxiety on the giant screen and
Big brothering.
Yeah.
At one point, one of the core emotions, or the original emotions, uses a pair of binoculars, and those are Lenny from Toy Story.
Lenny binoculars.
I missed that.
Fun.
Another coincidence, Riley's jersey, well, not coincidence, I'm sure they did it on purpose. She's number 28, and this is a 28th Pixar film. We see a couple of references to the first film in clothing. The rainbow shirt that Riley wore in the first movie, she tries on in this one. It doesn't fit anymore. And remember how her dad moved, they moved to San Francisco for her dad's startup? It was called Brang. He had a Brang shirt in the first movie, and we see her wearing it as a pajama shirt in this movie. I thought that was really cute.
Nice.
Last few, John Ratzenberger is back, as you heard. He's a mind worker. And we do get an A113 in I think a fairly creative manner in this one. The vault that they go into has Roman numerals on it, ACXIII, which is A113.
I like when they go a little more inventive.
It's still a room, but that's fine.
Yeah.
I scoured the internet. No one has yet spotted the Luxo ball. We also don't have confirmed findings of the Pizza Planet truck yet. However, Joy does have this little origami of Bing Bong and his truck on the shelf of her room. So that truck might be like, I can't remember if Bing Bong's truck was like Pizza Planet inspired or something.
His was like a wagon.
Oh, you're right. It was a wagon. You were right.
Yeah.
So, and those are my particulars.
Amazing. Yeah, it's only been a few days. Usually the like Luxo Ball, the Pizza Planet truck and all that stuff comes out
It'll turn up
a few weeks after a movie comes out. I have a few more particulars that I'd like to shout out. This might upset Sam, but I mean, I'm conflicted about this too. But anyways, this movie's doing very well. Opening weekend, this movie's crushing it. This movie is doing better than I think like Dune did on its opening weekend, which is surprising because this summer in 2024 for movies has been very hit or miss. Like some movies that were supposed to be hits guaranteed, like Furiosa, bombed at the box office, and some and Fall Guy, it didn't do as well as they hoped, and then other movies had succeeded. So I think there was a level of like, I don't know what's going to happen with Inside Out 2, or people are going to come to the movies for it. And it seems like people are definitely coming to the movies, at least opening weekend, which is that's a good thing. I feel conflicted because
it means another sequel
of the Pete Docter stuff, but
it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
But I mean, like, let's be real. Like the last few Disney movies have done poorly, and like if you want something as Wish is the most, here's everything you want, fuckers, but it's not actually. That movie did very poorly at the box office.
Yeah.
So like I like when good movies do well. And I think Inside Out 2 is a good movie and an important one. So in that way, I'm like, it's a win for the animators and all those people who worked on Inside Out 2. It's more annoying that Pete Docter is going to get the wrong message out of it.
Yeah.
That's all I want.
The timing is unfortunate.
From this, which is unfortunate because I feel like for the last handful of movies, minus like Lightyear, we've been praising the more personal stories.
Yep.
And I feel like we even talked about where like it feels like they're going back to like original Pixar where it's more like one sense of wonder and that kind of stuff. And yeah, maybe like Elemental's not quote unquote meant for me, or Turning Red's not meant for me, but they're still enjoyable movies and they have a lot of charm behind them. And it's disappointing to hear that they're kind of going the opposite direction.
And Lightyear was the first one to go to theaters again, because remember, like
tanked,
Luca,
right?
Turning Red, Soul, it did tank. But then they're blaming that tanking on the previous movies, which like didn't get box office numbers. So they're like, it must be because of these original stories. But then Lightyear's not even like fully an original. Like it's like where you're just making this shit up at this point.
Yeah.
Like you're just like these movies might have all done well and everyone did like them. Nobody went to see Buzz Lightyear because it was a weird choice to do.
It smells like confirmation bias.
Yeah.
And Luca and Turning Red in particular, I would say are two of Pixar's best movies. For sure, they're up there. I feel like they were brought up.
Yeah.
In our top 5 and argued for. So yeah, it's kind of hopefully they like take the right lessons from this, where it's like it is a sequel, but I thought it was a good sequel and a justified one, as Tung and I were saying. And
I agree with like I don't think it's neither about like the personal story versus the one that like overarches for everybody. It's just like people just want to see a good story, and
that's a clear vision as well. Like
for sure,
having a director that has, it doesn't necessarily have to be personal, but a director that knows what they want at the end of the road and can work towards that is better than like a corporation just churning out a product that is like, we can make toys from this.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Okay, so the thing that I wanted to talk about for Pixar Particulars really quickly is that I was listening to just a random podcast I've never listened to before. It's called Ask Lisa. I just typed in Inside Out 2 in the Apple podcast just to see if I can get a little bit more information about the movie before today's podcast. And I think it was interesting because it has the psychologist from the original Inside Out one and the psychologist who helped with the new Inside Out 2. And I think it's a cool conversation that's kind of like throughout the entire thing of how they thought of this entire thing. And it kind of goes back to like when Inside Out 1 was created, there was only thought to be a handful of emotions. But by the time Inside Out 2 came out, it's like, actually, there's a lot of emotions. And the psychologist that they chose is someone who specializes and specifically teenager and preteen emotions, which is why like the decision to have the embarrassment, envy, ennui, and anxiety were part of this discussion is because a lot of kids feel this very early on and they don't know how to process it. Things like envy is one that's always interesting because, yeah, like I don't mind her, but she's also kind of forgettable in the grand scheme of things. We didn't really talk about her once or any of her gags because she doesn't really have many in the movie. Yeah. But the reason why she's there is because kids feel this from an early age. It's that kids are starting to compare themselves to others when they're young, like being like, oh, this person has this in their life. Why does this person have that? Oh, and then there's like a mental hierarchy that they're trying to battle where they want to come out on top and their feelings of jealousy and things like that. I think it's a really neat conversation. And I wrote this thing down where essentially what they wanted to say was by creating this movie, they want us to all embrace all those uncomfortable emotions and they are here for a reason and they aren't destructive. Things like embarrassment, they're supposed to tell the human mind important things. Like when you feel embarrassed, you're supposed to be like, oh, there's something happening here and it's the reason why I'm embarrassed. Maybe I won't do that in the future, right? Our emotions, it's basically telling us our emotions are telling us stuff, which is like the most like obvious answer, but it's good to hear psychologists talk about that stuff. And as we get older, we gain wisdom and we're able to harness these emotions like embarrassment and envy in healthy ways. So someone who is older than a teenager, obviously, if they're envious, they can sit with this and be like, oh, I can use this emotion of envy to make myself a better person and make the right decision instead of being like, oh, I'm going to hurt someone because I'm envious of them, if that makes sense. So I thought that was cool. And then the other thing was normalizing what becoming a teenager is. And this psychologist talks a lot about that and how it's always kind of a messy thing. And that's what they wanted to portray in this movie was that like this call here, none of us have children, but we have friends who have children and family who have children. And there is a feeling that when you're raising teenagers, parents feel really alone in the experience because their teenagers randomly start lashing out at them. You see this in the movie with Riley and stuff like that, where like the slightest bit of anger or disgust sets Riley off and yells at her mother and stuff like that. What this movie wanted to do is normalize that experience and say like, you're not alone in this. Basically, everybody will go through something like this raising a teenager because that's how intense these new emotions are. And I think that's a cool way to contextualize that and like, again, show this to someone who's just like, hey, I know your teenager might be crazy, but it's okay. You're going to get through this. We're all going to get through this, or we'll find a way through this kind of thing. Yeah, that was my Pixar particulars on that.
It also reminded me, speaking of like the emotions, what was the emotion, the old emotion that
Nostalgia. Such a good gag.
And they're all like, no, not yet.
You're too young for nostalgia.
Yeah.
Well, I was just gonna like talking about like how when you're older you have more wisdom to like deal with your emotions, and I do think that's through discussing them, which I think is just something for me that's missing here. Because even talking about envy, it's like maybe she's not showcased in this because how do you even deal with that? You'd have to have her like thinking about it or like talking that out with someone. I don't think Joy can just be like, I'm gonna take over envy, and like that's the like I don't know what the solution to envy is besides like talking to someone about why you don't need to be envious and like what like how to deal with that. And I think it is through communication. And I think as we get older and we get wiser, it's because in theory we've grappled with these things either internally or externally. I'm not even saying therapy or talking to people, but you at least have thought about it yourself. But like I think of like some people in my parents' generation, I don't want to say who, but like there's a level of emotional intelligence that I think is lacking in a lot of people who don't want to just address them at all. And so I think emotional intelligence is something as a whole that people don't talk about a lot. I know my sister told me there's a documentary out that I haven't watched yet that I would like to, but it's sometimes I think that's where I'm like, oh, there is a level of you can't just sit with your feelings. You have to like think and grapple a bit. And it's uncomfortable. And that's the uncomfy part, is sitting there and dealing with them and either talking them through or thinking them through. but just feeling them isn't necessarily going to teach you anything without like some level of insight. So not that that's related to this movie, and how do you explore all that? I don't know. I'm just, that's what's missing for me, is the level of like internalization of what's happening to some degree or another, which I feel like in Turning Red they did. Again, not to compare them, but like that's also a coming of age story, but she does like just talk with her mom out these things, and she experiences anxiety in the film and puberty and this and that. And I think there's just more of like her talking to her friends about it and talking to her mom, where I'm getting that kind of internalization that I miss here. But obviously they're doing two different things. So that's where I'll end on that one.
The last thing I'll say about that, I know we gotta move on, but is that like the psychologist also is saying that she hopes that this movie starts the conversations with children and stuff like that, which I think is a great starting point. And like, I know it's a critique of yours, Sam and Laura, to a degree, of like how it doesn't talk about those aspects of talking about these emotions. And you can't have a movie that solves every problem at once, right? Like they're going to miss something. At the end of the day, it's like, you know, still a family friendly movie. It still has to be zippy and fun to a degree and stuff. And it is good when they're able to recognize a bunch of stuff, but it can't hit everything. I think the important thing is that these emotions exist, and we're trying to normalize that they're not destructive and that they're not supposed to be something that we're supposed to hide away and bottle up like our parents' generation does, right? And yeah, I do think it's good that if, you know, after the movie, kids can be like, can you tell me a little bit more about anxiety? And that's where the psychologist was saying, and that's where the real work begins, is that now that people know what it is, parents can actually like discuss it with their children and have a hopefully healthy like conversation.
The Barbie movie and feminism, where it's like, this movie actually didn't do anything, but it's making you talk about it. Which is, so maybe now you'll do something.
Yeah, exactly.
I do think it's a good stepping stone to a larger conversation. Much like, which is why I brought up that what I overheard that little girl say, where she's like, anxiety is my favorite, and then the mom being like, oh, why is that? And then I mean, in my mind, continuing that conversation, I'm like, hopefully that opens a door for the parent to like talk about anxiety as like an emotion, and like Tongue's saying, normalize it. And like, of course, I do think, you're right, Sam, Turning Red did a lot of that stuff better, but I think this movie, it's just gonna start a conversation, and maybe in Inside Out 17 finally get there.
I think Inside Out 3 should like go into her sexuality and have those, because if we're saying they're jumping off points and just like making things normalized, and anxiety is one of them, like, great, now let's like normalize like I don't know, bisexuality.
Sure. Let's go right into animation angle.
Sure. So, I'll be quick. I don't really have that much. Obviously, the movie looked really good. It looked as good as the first one, I would say. I mean, there's other cool new stuff, but I don't think technology-wise it was like a huge jump. But like I said, they do 2D, like hand-drawn stuff for the Bloopy or Bloofy, which they had to like fit into the pipeline and everything, right? But they had the capability to do this because I guess they have a new show coming out called Win or Lose that is incorporating a 2D pipeline. So because of that, they had the like resources to like kind of build a team, and they had some like animators that used to do 2D animation house and stuff. So it's all done in TV Paint, which is a 2D program. And so it's still like on the computer, but hand-drawn. And they ended up doing it, in some kind of weird mix in the software so that Bloofy and Pouchy would like move with the camera and stuff. I feel like this is where I'll bring up, and Brad would maybe agree with me, but I feel like both of us really didn't want to do 3D movie. When I realized we had bought 3D tickets, we were both kind of like, shit.
We let out a big enough we let out a big enough groan when we realized we were seeing 3D that the attendant was like, you can go like change your ticket if you want.
We were visibly like disappointed, but then at the end I was like, I actually am glad we saw that in 3D because it actually was cool.
Oh, cool.
And there was parts that actually felt good. And and the hand-drawn parts, they did feel very separate,
Oh,
which
that's
I was like
cool.
finding myself thinking, I was like, how would this look in a non-3D version? Because ours, it like really did feel separated.
Yeah,
So
when
there
like
were
the pouch is like bringing up the items, it's like one's really close to screen, one's really far,
Yeah.
Ah,
and
it's
it's
cool.
like using the space. So yeah, they did a good job with it.
it felt very like thought out, not just like we have to turn this movie 3D. It felt like, okay, this will be a good time to use 3D. So I ended up liking I ended up being like, okay, I'm glad we did that. But that's all for animation angle.
All right.
Nice.
And I also like the PS1 animation. I thought that was
Yeah, yeah, the
stupid and
pixelation
funny.
they got just right.
Just perfect. Maybe PS2 if we're being generous.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's go into 5-star, 1-star. Oh my God, this movie just came out. So I was just like, oh my God, what is this 5-star, 1-star going to look like? I was waiting to the very last second today to pull this up. Like, I usually have it copy pasted in my notes. This time I'm live on Google Reviews to make sure I have the most fresh 5-star, 1-stars. And I'll go with 5 stars from Maria Jordan here. It's a really long one, so I'm only going to read the beginning here. But never have I ever related to a movie more in my life. I just watched it today in theaters, and it was worth every penny spent watching it. This last year really has been anxiety-inducing for me, from tests to friends, and Inside Out 2 is so accurate with all the emotions that can come from stressful changes in one's life. It had some really good, funny moments sprinkled in there, and comedic timing was on point, and it was relatable, funny, and a little heart-wrenching. And then he continues to gush about it. So that's 5-star. I'm going to read you 2 1-stars. This 1-star. Amazing. Love the way it explores the different parts of the brain and common words like long-term memory, brainstorming being an actual storm, and sarcasm being an actual chasm. Super cool movie. Takes me back to when I was 6 years old watching the first movie in 2015. Which is wild. One of the very rare occasions where the sequel is equally, if not better than the first film. We've been seeing a lot of garbage sequels lately, like Megamind 2, but this film was absolutely stellar. And then in caps, do not listen to these garbage, useless 1-star reviews. This movie is a must watch, so if you're looking at this review, trying to find reasons why it's bad, stop. It's not bad at all. 199 people found it helpful. The 1-star reviews, one of them was really... Okay, I'm just going to read you snippets from each. One from Anthony Williams from 13 hours ago. The worst movie I have ever seen. I especially love the black woman hockey coach. So inclusive. I am over 50 years old and I have never ever seen a black woman wearing even a hockey jersey or shirt. And that's when I stopped reading this review.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Fuck you, Anthony Williams.
Yo, that guy sucks.
I was just thinking before you started reading it, I'm like, the 1-stars, I'm like, there's probably not enough for this movie. 1-stars are always filled with like racism and a very specific hate. But here we are.
I was just like, that is what your hang up is? The black woman coach? Like, get out of here. And then the other person was saying how much they love Inside Out 1, but Inside Out 2 has just such terrible and ugly, goofy characters, and like the new characters they think are terrible. And here's the thing that they cannot believe. Riley was 12 years old, but after 9 years between movies, she became 13. And then that's it. Like, he just kind of goes on a rant.
God.
He's like, how is it possible after 9 years she only grew up 1 year? And I'm like, dude, it's a fucking
Do you think this guy's ever seen The Simpsons?
Do you think this is real life?
I was thinking The Simpsons immediately.
Yeah.
Don't let them watch The Simpsons. For
I couldn't
33
believe.
years.
I know. It's just like, this is wild. And that is 5-star, 1-star.
Wow.
But I'd like to go right into the back of the mind so we can go into hot takes.
Hot takes.
Hot takes. Brought to you by, I don't know, Anger.
Dynamite.
Oh, Dynamite from Pouchy.
Dynamite.
That's
Thanks,
good.
Pouchy.
Nice one.
Yeah, that's good. The TNT. All right, hot takes. Sam, any hot takes?
I'm waiting for them.
No, I mean, no.
No.
Sounds like you have one.
I feel like
that's
you have a
too
hot take because
spicy.
it's at the tip of the tongue.
I just don't think that the islands and the core beliefs are different. I thought the islands were the core beliefs. Why did we abandon the islands in this movie? I feel like the islands were important. Anyways.
Yeah, they did kind of abandon.
That's just like a
But
hot
those
take,
are
like,
those are personality.
Yeah.
They're personality islands.
Those are
as
different than
opposed to
beliefs.
beliefs.
Those
Yeah.
are way different, I think. Yeah.
We're getting muddy here. That's right. That's all I'm saying.
You don't believe that
Humans are
personalities
complicated.
and beliefs are two separate things? I feel
I
like-
guess. I guess. Then why didn't we go to the islands? I just
Well,
missed
because
the
we went to the islands in the
Hot
first
take,
one.
I missed the islands.
All right.
Yeah,
there we
that's
go.
fair. That's fair, Sam.
Yeah, because like goofball island, that's not a belief of yours. You're just a goofball, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
That's true.
But
I
hot
believe in
I
goofballs.
like your hot take. Laura.
What's this school's budget? Because I've never seen an ice pad like that. Those ceilings,
Yeah.
the glass,
They're rich.
the light. Get out of here.
Brad.
Nothing. Sorry.
All right.
I was too distracted writing
you
down.
did the
That's fine. You
summary.
did your best.
You did plenty.
That's
you
true.
did plenty. If you have any more, yeah, go ahead, please. Yeah.
Hot take. I feel like I did have some beliefs as a child. I don't think they magically appeared when I hit puberty. I'm a good person. I would like to donate money to these animals that I keep seeing commercials for. Mom and Dad, please let me give them my money. Those were beliefs that I still hold.
You know, I will
I'm not
say
saying that I had a ton of them.
Yeah.
I'm not saying there was a big plethora of beliefs, but there was at least like one or two.
the beliefs existed before puberty. They just didn't
Okay.
exist in the first film.
They didn't sprout.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, so it
I
was
see.
like
Okay.
between 11 and 13 they developed.
Thank you for clarifying.
There we go.
Okay.
There we
I'm
go.
happy to.
Here's my hot take. Riley's really good at reconciling her emotions in one movie, like kind of like in a day or two. Like it's like in the first movie, it's like just a few days that she goes from like maybe joy and sadness together is like gonna work out for me, and then she's good. And in this movie, it's like puberty's hard, but we have a weekend to
Nailed it.
to get it all together. Now we are good. I think that's just kind of funny.
Yeah.
I've got some bad news for you, Riley.
Oh boy. That zit is the tip of the iceberg, my friend.
Yeah. Has anyone told you about how this is going to happen monthly? Can we get inside the head?
Yeah.
For that
I'd watch that
time?
movie.
Yeah.
My next hot take, I'm not sure this film's creators know how avalanches work. Listeners, please never try to ride an avalanche.
I also thought that was dangerous.
Yeah.
Is it just me and Laura? I think so. Until you and if you guys think of some, just let us know. I mean, this isn't really that big of a hot take, but it is strange that like in a movie about puberty, we didn't really explore like, you know, getting your period or something like that, right?
They wanted it to be universal.
And I
It
mean,
was
like,
not.
it's just
It
a
needed
weekend.
to be universal.
It's just
and
a
clean.
weekend. So it's like, do we need the like a period
Yeah.
while she's it's a lot in
Oh,
one
God.
weekend, but anyways, Laura.
I do think this movie suffers from the lack of Mindy Kaling and Bill Hader.
Oh yeah.
I agree.
Sorry.
Hot take. I did not. it just didn't really. I think
register?
I like those two.
Yeah.
It would have
Yeah.
been great if they came back, but I think Tony Hale and I forget her
I
name.
can't remember. I didn't recognize the
But
name.
They did a good job.
They did a good job. I don't know.
I noticed.
I would have noticed more because they're not like huge in the first movie. So like if
It's
they
true.
replaced joy and sadness, then I would have been like, well, then you don't have a movie. But like Fear and Disgust, are so
Agreed.
like there's secondary characters. I don't care, even though they're fine. So
Fear got way more laughs in the first movie, I would say.
Yeah.
I think my
Fear was
laughs
better in
were
the
all
first.
quite bigger in the first one.
sure, because Triple Dent, it came back. So in the podcast I was listening to, apparently there was like somewhat of a sexually I use that word very lightly, but like sexually charged moment between sadness and embarrassment when they first like look at each other. And apparently the psychologist was like, that's not a mistake, because like those two emotions can kind of like go hand in hand with one another.
Interesting.
And I was like, because you see it when they're both kind of looking at each other and he's hiding her behind the bookcase and stuff like that. Anyways, it'd be cool if they dated. It was my
I
hot
ship
take.
it. I ship it.
I could see it.
Pouchy feels like a Bo Burnham character. I feel like they got into some really dark humor in the
Yeah.
end when Anger's just like pulling stuff out of his
Yeah.
mouth and he's sort of screaming. It was pretty dark. It reminded me of like the sock
sock
puppet.
puppet thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, true.
How many do you have, Laura?
I have two more.
Okay. None of mine are very hot anymore, but they're just thoughts that I wrote in hot takes.
Takes.
One of them is, here's a nice one. I grew up studying psychology as my university degree and biology. And sometimes I reflect on my life and be like, why did I do that? Like just like I'm a videographer now and I edit podcasts for a living and do like multimedia stuff. And then I think about my degree. I'm like, that's completely unrelated. I'm like, sometimes I just wonder why I did that in the first place. But then I watch movies like Inside Out 1 and Inside Out 2 where it like talks about emotions on the forefront. And I'm like, yeah, this is why I like talking about stuff like feelings and emotions. So it kind of like, I don't know, makes me feel better about my degree. Even though it would have been more... You
studied something that interested you.
Yes. And
That's
then,
important.
You know, the homework afterwards, I did not enjoy it. But I'm like, yeah, I am interested in this stuff. It's cool.
Nice.
All right. My last hot takes. This is not even hot. They should teach this in school. hot take. Great.
They do.
Yeah.
They do. But they should teach this in school, Inside Out 2, specifically, anxiety and stuff, and show the movie. Maya Hawke seems really cool. It's another hot take. I saw some interviews of her. She seems really cool.
Yeah. Like
the way she talks about anxiety is like, this is perfect. I think she was perfectly cast as anxiety.
Check out her music, everyone. Chaos Angel.
Yeah. I would like to see nostalgia play a bigger part in Inside Out 3, but I think Sam's version of like exploring sexuality might be more interesting. In my mind, Riley was like 80 years old.
No, she'll be like 16 or something and like starting to be like,
Yeah. Last few things. I love how Joy is so much like Leslie Knope. I think Amy Poehler plays like that character really well. Supreme Court Justice. Like that's just like a fun...
I feel like that was a reference to Parks and Rec for sure.
And my last hot take, which is not a hot take, but I just want to put it somewhere. Our theater experience was pretty not great. Like we had good seats, but the two like, I don't know, 20-year-olds maybe beside us, they're like boys, were talking throughout the entire movie to each other about nothing, and you can kind of hear them, but they were directly beside us. So I felt kind of like weird. Like the guy who's talking was one seat away from me, so I just felt weird to be like, hey guys, shut up. But
it just seems like such like if you're gonna go see a movie with a friend on opening night that's an animated film and you're like a 20-year-old boy, you'd think you're going because you're really excited about it and therefore don't want to talk through it. I don't know.
They talked through a lot of the movie, which was super annoying. But then the person in front of us was on their phone the entire time.
Oh my gosh.
Like just scrolling about nothing the entire time. Luckily, there was like a barrier in our theater of like, so I couldn't see the phone in completely, but every time I moved my foot, I could definitely see them, which was annoying. And the hot take is like those two groups were more disruptive than the actual fucking kids that came to the movie. Like we had kids in our movie and they like said a few things sometimes.
Yeah, it was cute.
But those guys were way more distracting. Anyways.
Yeah.
That's annoying.
People suck.
I think we had kids running around our theater. There was a lot of thumping around and I was like, I'm pretty sure children are just running.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Okay, we're going to go to Laura's hot take here. One of them is going to be an audio clip.
Yeah,
so.
we have a few audio clips here.
Wow.
So I found out that, so we saw it on Thursday. I found out that my nephew Wesley, who's 6, his class went to see it on Friday. So speaking of like, this should be taught to kids. And I was really interested to hear a 6-year-old's take on the movie. So I sent him a few questions. He recorded a few responses for me, and we're going to hear those now. So the first question that I asked him is, did you like this movie?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
It's a yes.
That's it.
Yes.
One clip.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is quiet, but we can hear it.
Yeah.
All right.
The next question that I asked him was, did you have a favorite part of the movie?
No.
Okay, great.
Okay.
The next question I asked was, did you have a favorite character, and why were they your favorite character?
Anxiety because he was very funny.
Anxiety because he was very funny. Right?
Okay, great.
Just like the kid Brad heard in the theater.
Yeah.
And the last question that I asked was, did you learn anything from this movie?
No.
There you have it.
Classic.
There you have it. Thank you, Wesley.
Kids just want to see zippy fun stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. My last hot take is, Jiminy Mother Lovin' Toaster Strudel. That's a great catchphrase.
Oh, yeah.
Jiminy
Did
Mother
they say that in the movie?
Yeah,
Joy
when
says that.
Joy flips out because they're like, if Joy can't even notice this, then I don't even know what's wrong with her. And she's like, Jiminy Mother Lovin' Toaster Strudel. Of course I know, but it's my job to be joyful.
Yeah.
And
It is funny.
it's real
It's
good.
funny.
Oh my.
Almost a swear, but not at all.
Oh, exactly.
Oh my goodness. Wow. What an episode on Inside Out 2. An event for me, I will say. But this is a great episode. You know, we're officially all caught up now. The timing all worked out. And you're going to see some bonus episodes from the Disney Vault. We have some fun episodes cooking for you at Pixar Pals Cross Disney Dummies. And yeah, but before we go, the next movie that is on the docket is actually in 2025, and that is Elio, which
Elio.
I don't know too much about, but it's like that one that's in space, it sounds like. Do you know anything about it, Sam, Brad?
Oh man,
No.
Is there
I'm
a
not
teaser
even...
for it?
Yeah, I think
There
so.
was
There is
a teaser, yeah.
A kid goes to space. I'm not sure.
I'm going to read it really quickly. Elio, an underdog with an active imagination, finds himself inadvertently beamed up to the Communiverse, an interplanetary organization with representatives from galaxies far and wide. Mistakenly identified as Earth's ambassador to the rest of the universe, he starts to form new bonds with eccentric aliens while discovering who he's truly meant to be.
Oh. Hey, that's an original story, friends. We'll
I know.
call that a
I
win.
was gonna say, it doesn't sound like something I'm generally interested in, but I will go to boost its numbers.
The one thing I'm surprised by is that they would choose such an Italian-sounding name after Luca.
It's true. Yeah.
Elio.
Elio.
True.
Is that Italian?
Maybe. And yeah, that's it for today's episode of Inside Out 2. We'll catch you next time. And, you know, we're going to be with our bonus episodes. And we're also going to be, you know, doing whatever Disney movies coming out this year. I don't know what that is. What is it? What is
November 27th.
Moana 2.
Oh, Moana.
Consider the coconut.
Make way, everyone. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is back.
As is Ali Iquavallo.
Yeah, but
Cravallo,
Dwayne's
I
doing
said
the
that.
live action one too, because he can't get enough of being Maui.
Oh my god.
Oh, and I was telling this to Laura when the trailer for Moana 2 was happening, because Lin-Manuel Miranda's doing,
He's not doing Moana 2.
he's doing Mufasa.
He's
But
doing
he's doing
Mufasa.
Mufasa.
So I
Yeah.
was like, hey, listen, what if Mufasa raps in the live action movie?
no.
Someone's gonna.
I was a baby lion, now I'm a big lion.
Hey, yo, I'm Mufasa from Pride Rock. All right,
Now I
Sam,
hope it happens.
Sam and Brad, and no, Sam and Laura and Brad, if you want to sing us out, please do.
It's working.
How do you two get worse at this?